Welcome once again to a slightly belated episode of Der Fluffenhammer. Once again, as you can tell, we're in for the lack of a cold open, which I'm not very good at, so I don't do. Sans our usual host Adam today, so today you're stuck with me and with our friend Andy here, I'm afraid. Hey Andy, how you doing?
Hello, I like how you were like, oh, and Andy. I'm sorry,
And
Andy's
Andy,
here.
no,
I'm
I was
afraid.
stuck with me, stuck with me waffling on, that's kind of what I was going for.
The people love to come for George, though.
Ah, do they though?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh my God! Anyone who listens to like Strange Playgrounds, my other podcast, or What the Hell Is Wrong with Us, one of the other podcasts I do, will know that there's a tendency for the podcasts I do to go wildly off topic. Like,
Unlike any that Mr. Griffith has done in the past. Totally not the
right.
case there.
Right. It's I mean, you did see one of the latest ones we did. We tried to do it with a friend of mine, Jack Graham, who's a Marxist scholar. A brilliant guy, absolutely brilliant guy. We tried to do a discussion on Alien 3,
Oh, okay.
and we talked for about 2 to 3 hours about everything except Alien 3. So the episode that went up was actually called Not Alien 3.
Well, it's an accurate title, I suppose.
It's a very accurate title, but we will get
Yeah.
round to it. I mean, we will get round to talking about it. I'm just wondering how many episodes are going to occur in between whilst we're trying to talk about Alien 3. But yes, as Andy was saying before we got on here, that it's been a while, my loves. It has been a while. Adam will be back as and when, hopefully relatively soon. But until then, we've got a lot to talk about. Bloody hell, what's been going
Yeah.
on?
I mean, only a small thing called
Oh,
Warhammerfest.
only little things. Yeah. So we've had what
Yeah.
have we had? We've had the next Broken Realms book, which is Baylacor. Adam and I will talk about that at some point because Adam read it and went nuts for it. Adam loves that book. He absolutely loves that book, and I can see why. It's really good. But we'll discuss that more when we can get a more
Yeah.
coherent show together.
Mhm.
We've had Warhammerfest and lots going on there.
Oh yeah, loads. I think I think just a quick throw out. I think the event would have been better if it was only across 3 days.
Yeah,
I think 5 days was too. 6 days. 6 days
six.
was too many
Yeah, it was
days.
6. It kind of stretched it a bit thin
Yeah, there
at
were some days
times.
like I think Monday was okay,
hmm
and then Friday was good, and Saturday was good.
Some of the days were kind of like cobbled together, weren't they? It's like,
Kind of,
what can we
yeah.
throw in here? We'll throw in this, and that'll be fine.
Wednesday and Thursday definitely felt like that.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I kind of appreciate what they're doing where they're
Yes.
still keeping up these little reveals and teasers for what's coming and whatnot, and I like the culture around it that they've cultivated. I think that's kind of fun.
Hmm.
Not without its controversy. Obviously there were some issues around some of the 40k releases. um
Oh, really? I guess
yeah,
can we get into those? Do you
I
think?
suppose we
Like,
should.
I'm
I suppose we
interested
should
to
do like
know.
there was a bit of blowback with the announcement of the next, what was it, Warzone Caradon, the campaign book.
Oh, right,
There was a
okay.
little bit of blowback from that was quite strong in the chat because people were kind of quite rightly, I suppose, were saying, why are you concentrating on releasing these campaign books when there are so many codices that need updating when
I mean, that's a fair point.
I
I
I
thought you were going to
get
say
that.
something a bit more like, why are you releasing these campaign books when the Broken Realms are so much better?
Well, that's true as well. I've got to say, I mean, don't get me wrong, the last campaign book was good. It was really good. It introduced some lovely stuff. It was well written,
Mhm.
but there does seem to be this discrepancy at the moment between AOS and 40k, where the Broken Realms books are fantastic. Like they
Like
are.
I know Gruff isn't as into 40k as you are, but
Mhm.
I don't hear you nearly talk about how much you love the campaign books for 40k as much
Well,
as when you and Adam get into talking
yeah.
about the Broken Realms and what was before the Broken Realms?
I cannot
It wasn't my line
remember.
Portents. There was one definitely
There
before that,
was
right?
I can't remember off the top of my
It
head,
must have.
but it seems that with the campaign stuff for AOS, they really do like to shake up the world. They like to change things, like
Mm.
significantly. I mean, the stuff that's happened in Broken Realms is like shockingly good, because it's stuff like big characters being toppled from their places, some of them even dying, like entire
Yeah.
realms being transformed, like new gods emerging. The metaphysics of the realms changes constantly. It's great fun. It's great fun. 40k, and this may be just due to the nature of the universe in which it's set, because it is so expansive, and it kind of makes things like the destructions of entire worlds seem like small potatoes because it happens all the
Oh,
bloody
totally.
time, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that may be part of it, but it's like everything seems to happen in the campaigns in a microcosm that doesn't
Mm.
really have that great an impact. The last big thing to happen in 40k was the destruction of Cadia, yeah?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
definitely.
really the last big thing. They tried to set up some stuff in Psychic Awakening, but it never really hit as hard as it maybe should,
Mm.
where it changed the status of the 40k universe. For my money, stuff like the emergence of the Silent King at the beginning of Ninth Ed and the resurrection of the Necrons should have been huge.
That should have been a campaign, I would
Yeah,
have thought.
it should have been. They should have changed the status of things. Like, you've got all this war going on between the Imperium and Chaos, and then suddenly, on all the worlds, you start to get like this psychic blanket where psychic powers don't work or don't work as they used to anymore, and
Mm.
the emergence of the Necrons from loads of tomb worlds. That
Do
could
you
have
think the
been.
issue with doing something like that is because people's complaints are that there aren't all the codexes out? Do you think that's the reason why they
Maybe,
can't do something like that? I mean, it's a pretty
maybe.
weak excuse because, you should have got these codexes out, one could argue, a while ago.
Yes, it is true. And don't get me wrong, I know they've faced issues, there have been
Oh,
external
totally.
factors
100%.
for that, but also at the same time, I get the complaint that like we're having these campaign books that are introducing loads of
Mm.
alternative army lists, and another big complaint is that not only have you not got the codices released, but even when you've got the codices, to get the full rules for your army, you're having to look across multiple different books again.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that can be annoying.
Which I get it's annoying. For me, the biggest thing is that if they're gonna do the campaign books, they should do something with them.
That'd be nice.
You
Yeah, it
know,
should push, like we said before, like you said with the Age of Sigmar stuff. It should push the narrative
yes.
in an interesting way. So like again, like you said, so it changes the universe, or at
Hmm.
least a section of the galaxy at the
Right.
very least.
I mean, they claim that Vigilus would do that, but it didn't.
No, it didn't seem to.
Vigilus was a little microcosm campaign that happened on one world in one area, and that was it.
Yeah.
That was kind of it. It set up some interesting stuff. The
I'm not sure you can use the excuse of the Warhammer 40k universe is too big either, because I mean the realms are very big and conceptually they're massive as
It's
well.
true. It's true. I mean, technically, the realms are infinite, aren't they?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
are like. I mean, I know you get the maps and whatnot, but you have to bear in mind those maps aren't static.
No.
Like, take Sheesh, for example. Every time someone comes up with a concept of a new afterlife, Sheesh expands
Hmm.
to incorporate that new afterlife.
The maps, I think the maps are only there to give people who like the lore and like
Yeah,
getting an idea of what the lands currently that we know of are going to look like,
that's
something
it.
to work with mentally,
Yeah.
and that's and then like you say, to then just go, there's just more of it as well,
Yes.
and so
There's.
imagine whatever you want, but here's what we have for
Yeah.
the in static lore for the moment.
For the
This is
moment,
this
yeah.
is what it looks like, but there's also loads beyond it as well.
And
That's
not
great.
only that, they even like they change those maps all the time. So Sheesh,
That's true.
like
Yeah,
during Soul War, Sheesh literally inverted.
that's right. Yeah.
So all the stuff that was on the outer realms moved to the middle, and all the stuff that
Hmm.
was on the middle moved to the outer. The Necroquake changed the topography of a lot of the mortal realms. Recently, in Broken Realms Baelacor, there's this bit where a silver tower, the silver towers of Zeech,
Oh yes.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
explodes. It
Oh no.
crashes down into Charmon, the realm of metal. It
Hmm.
explodes, and the sort of the fallout of magic from that alters the topography of Charmon around it.
Yeah.
So it's constantly in flux. It's constantly moving. 40k has got this thing at the moment where, barring things like the Cicatrix Maledictum, which was an entire like generation of the game ago,
Mm.
it just stays where it is. It kind of just
Yeah.
stays where it is. You know, the status quo doesn't change enough, unfortunately.
No, I don't. Has it expanded at all? Until it split the galaxy in half, which is it at least sounds like a big deal.
It
And I
did.
think conceptually was
It
quite big.
was conceptually a big deal, but it doesn't like. Technically, you should have this situation now where the Imperium is on the back foot,
Mm.
where it's under siege all the time from demons and chaos cultists and wild psychers, and like the forces of the renegades and chaos space marines can basically spill into the material universe almost at will now, whereas
Mm.
before they had to get out through the Cadian Gate or some other means from the Eye of Terror. Doesn't really matter anymore, you know. But that just doesn't seem to have happened. You've had
No.
things like Sorciarius, you know, the realm of the sorcerers, that is now in imperial space and really close to Terra,
Right.
but nothing really has been done with it.
It just is
It just
still.
is there, you know.
Yeah.
And I get it. They can't. I know that they can't do too much until, you know, they can't really do too much with it. But what creating AOS from Warhammer Fantasy Battle did was refresh that universe in such a dynamic way, and
Mm.
has allowed for this continuation of narrative drive, which 40k just doesn't have right now.
Do you worry that it's like 40k might suffer? I don't think it'll massively suffer the same thing that fantasy did, which was the stagnation. But do you think in some ways it might suffer some stagnation?
I think,
It'll still keep
yeah,
its loads of fans because it is still the poster boy of
it's
Games Workshop.
it's still the
of course, so.
poster boy, just because it's the science fiction game, and science
Yeah,
fiction's always been bigger than fantasy, you know. So it's just the
yeah,
way it is. But I do feel that the universe has that potential to just like take the recent Drukhari Codex. Now that is an amazing codex. It's
mm,
really good. But does it move the story of the Drukhari on any? No, not really.
mm.
The background is pretty much the same as it was in the 8th edition codex, which did move the background on a little bit because you had the assassination of Asdrubal Vecht and then his resurrection. But that doesn't really have much significance in the wider universe, does it?
No,
Really? It doesn't even change the status quo in Comera that much.
what a shame.
Yeah, they really do need, when they're doing the ninth ed codices, they really do need to start looking at shifting the armies forward, not only in terms of their rules but in terms of their background as well.
Yeah,
Like, I want to know what they're doing. I want to know what the Drukhari are doing in the present day universe. I want to know what their status is. I want to know what's going on with the Inari after the resurrection of Gilliman and whatnot. What are they up to?
yeah, definitely.
Because of all the forces that could change the status quo of the 40k universe, the Inari are it.
And yet they've had nothing done with them. They had that
No.
codex of making them the Inari,
Hmm.
and again, I don't think that much has happened with them since then,
Nope.
apart from, like you say, they helped Gilliman come back,
That's
and that was
about it.
about it.
That's
Yeah.
about it. All we really know about them at the moment is that Slanesh has sent some of his hunters after Ivrain, you know, the Messiah of Inead.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there was a fight between her and Shalaxi Hellbane, you know, the big huntress demon.
Oh okay.
And that's it. That's all we've had, really. There hasn't been much else.
You would have thought the Inari would have had a push as well when the Silent King came back, since they were
Yes,
always pegged as the ancient enemies of each other.
yep. You'd have thought so. Maybe, I mean, maybe when the Eldari, when the Agiani get their codex, there will be that kind of push. Because really, since the Necrons are now back in a big way, when the
Yeah,
Agiani codex comes out, there should be a really strong narrative strain about that through that codex.
you'd hope so.
I'd really hope so.
Yeah.
Because if not, that's going to smack of a little bit of laziness. I've got to say that is going to
Mm.
smack of a little bit of complacency, at least.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What?
But I
But
mean,
speaking of laziness, what did you think of the release of or the update to the Beast Snaggers that we got on day what was it, 5 of Warhammer?
Wow, I mean, well,
Fest?
the announcement of the new orcs, I found to be pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, technically we'd already been spoiled on it a little bit,
Yeah.
hadn't we?
Oh
Because we
yeah,
already knew about
we
the
knew that.
mounted squig boys and
Yes,
stuff, but now we know exactly what's coming out and what that range is, at least for this
it
part of the
looks.
orcs.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to like the beast snaggers are basically a new form of orc, aren't they? They look like they're going to be like
Yes.
more like akin to the old feral orcs used to be. So they're going to be like slightly ragtag. They're almost like the almost like the countryside orcs, the ones that herd animals and things like that. So they've got lots of squigs and things that they ride, which is great. They look amazing. I mean, Adam, being the orc fan that he is, has often talked about what they need to do in 40k with the
Mm.
orcs is give them a really big kind of stylistic push. They need that wholesale redesign that the Drukhari had, back in fourth ed.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
That's what they need. And if these guys are anything to go by, it looks like that's what they've done.
Yeah, it sounds like the way that they were talking during the live stream is that, I mean, we've got the Speed Freaks, which is that clan but with cars.
Yeah.
We've got these guys, which are Beast Hunters. I guess there'll be a normal styled orc as well that we're getting in the future, and I wonder how many other different, like, should we call them clans? Mobs?
I think they are clans, aren't they? They're still going to be the
Kind of.
clans. And what they were saying on the live stream is that we haven't even seen like a third of the new releases for the orcs yet.
No. Yeah, this is a
So
preview, basically, isn't it?
that's good. That's good because the orcs are one of the alien races that really needed just a mass overhaul, a complete mass
Yeah.
overhaul. They were using lots of old kits. They'd never really had that like real aesthetic push that a lot of the other armies had in previous reimaginings. So
Hmm.
to think they've done that for Ninth Ed is great. That's really good. And if the other Ninth Ed Xenos codices are anything to go by, this is something worth getting excited about
Oh, 100%.
because
Do
like
you feel the release of these is going to be similar to the Sisters of Battle? Because they're showing us like a preview wave, they're giving us a special box set for them,
Yeah.
and then they say the rest of them are going to come out later.
So maybe
It seems to me it's very Sisters
yeah,
of Battle.
I think it's going to be staggered. I think, at this
Going to have
point,
to be, yeah.
with the way things are in the aftermath of everything that's happened, COVID, the Brexit, everything else, I think this is probably how they're going to be doing a lot of the releases from this point on. I think they're going to be staggered releases more rather than like, the old-fashioned let's just drop everything at once.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the way it's going to go. But that's kind of exciting. I mean, the orcs are not an army I play, but I've always liked, because they're a fun element in 40k. They really are. They're a refreshing element from the grimdark, aren't they? Because they're
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
They're just fun, and they've really, looking at these new sculpts, they've gone for the fun element.
Yeah,
So
they're really, really good.
there's like the squig riders. There's a little Gretchen one who's riding a squig that's got a wheel instead of feet, which
With
is
a nail in
awesome.
his hand.
Yeah, it's great. There's also a new Mechaniac model who's got a little squig, Gretchen follower who's got wheels instead of feet, which is lovely.
I didn't see that one.
I love it. Yeah, he was in one of the previews. He was on one of the he didn't feature in the Warhammerfest previews. He just came
Okay.
up. He just came up. It's a Pain Boy. It's the Pain Boy, not the Mechaniac. The Pain
Oh,
Boy, who's got
right,
like
I know what you're talking
all
about.
of the
Yeah, yeah,
cybernetic components and whatnot. That's another thing they've gone heavy on with these guys. Like
yeah.
they really clearly want to differentiate the 40k orcs from the Oryx in
Yes.
AOS.
Good
So
idea as well.
which is a good idea because the Oryx really do look like what the 40k orcs used to look like once upon a time.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
They
Though I would
really
say,
do.
I don't think these guys, these ones specifically, I don't think they're going to take a huge amount of, like, Mr. Gruff tweaking them to be Oryx, to be
Not
fair.
at all.
All
Not
he's
at
got to
all.
do, and I'm sure he knows this, I don't need to tell him, is just get rid of the mechanical legs and
Yep.
stuff, and boom, they're done.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. I mean, it's like a lot of the miniatures they've done recently. They've gone mad with narrative detail. It's like every
Yes.
little miniature is a little diorama. They've got little squigs coming out of pockets. They've got tiny little like machines and engines and things. My favorite of the boxed set, my absolute favorite, is Zodgrod Wartsnagger, who is anybody who's been a fan of 40k for a long time. When they hear that name, will will just get this wave of nostalgia.
Yeah, they said on stream second edition. Is
Yeah,
that right?
Zodgrod Wartsnagger
Wow,
was one of the second edition characters.
it's crazy.
Yeah, right. And he's been a consistent character all the way through, but he's never had an update like to his miniature. It's always been the same bloody miniature.
How old was that mini?
Oh, ancient. It's the same. It's
Oh
from the
no.
same range that the original. And when I say I mean the original Gaskell Thraka came from.
Oh, where they were in the very kind of stylistic Russian kind of outfits.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like those ones.
The
So
explosion
he was
in
that
a
old?
Lego factory orcs. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah, they were great.
They were great.
amazing.
They were those were like my introduction to the orcs in
Same.
40k.
Yeah.
So I loved them. That's where you got the establishment of the clans as well, like the Goths and the Death Skulls and all those
Oh,
guys.
that's true. Yeah.
And it's where, I mean, Gathkul was around before then, but he wasn't a special character. He was a character that was made for Rogue Trader. That I believe
Oh my God.
was it Adrian Smith, the artist? I believe he created him. He rolled him up as a random character. And that's
that
where
was
he
the
comes
birth of the
from.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
insane.
That he
That one of these
was
big significant characters came from just
right.
a dude rolling a character. That's nuts.
The
That's
two
great.
original characters, the two original special characters in 40k came from that battle report. It was Marnius Calgar
Oh wow. Oh my
and
God.
Garthkul Thraka. How cool is that?
That's really cool. I
It's
didn't know
really
that. That's
cool.
really interesting.
And Garthkul became the first, because the Orc Codex was the first one, you know, for Second Ed.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was the very first codex. No, it wasn't. No. I tell a lie. The Space Wolves were first. The Space
Okay.
Wolves were first, and then the Orcs came.
Right.
But Garthkul was one of the very first special characters ever.
Hmm.
And definitely one of the first big warlord characters, you know, like the really powerful big war, like Abaddon, or
Yeah.
like Commissar Yarrick, or, you know, the iconic characters. He was one of the very first, which is ironic given the stature of the miniature back then, because he was tiny.
Hmm.
He was a tiny wee boy, even compared to some of the other orcs, he was tiny. But yeah, Zodgrod is from the same era. And he was basically, he's a
looks
runt
so
herd.
good.
He was called the runt herd. So he's got a big like pig sticker thing, and he herds the Gretchen. And he basically, he's like Fabius Bile in a way. He's kind of like Fabius Bile. He breeds and crossbreeds different forms of Gretchen and Snotling and Squig to perfect them. He even uses, like, I mean, it said this on the stream, but he uses very un-orky psychological techniques like positive reinforcement to
Yeah,
get
I
them.
really like that.
I love that. I love it to bits. But this new mini is wild.
It's so unique compared to
Right.
everything else.
It's one of those miniatures where I'm like, whoa, that I just want it to paint up. It's brilliant. The
I love
hair.
the squig hair.
Yeah, the hair squig. He's always had big hair. Zodgrod has always had wild, big blue hair, and in the original version, he had a big blue beard as well, with, like, you know, tassels and
Oh,
things.
now that you've said that, I know exactly which mini you're talking about.
Yeah.
I already know.
The stick
Yep.
that he had, like the runt sticker, was a big, like, claw, like an orange claw.
That's right.
But yeah, people really like that character, and he is a lot of fun. He's one of the orc characters who's basically a joke. You know, he's a bit of a laugh. He's a bit of a laugh, that's all. So I'm glad that he's back. I'm really happy that he's back. I'm very excited to see aesthetically what they do with the rest of the orc range, to tie them together with these guys. Like, these guys are a very, very good indication of what the new boys are going to look like.
Yes, yeah,
seems
I would
to me.
hope so.
Which is, they've gone for that slightly more ramshackle look, where it looks like they've, like, just nicked bits of armor and bits of scrap and stapled them together.
I'll be honest, if the Orc Boys looked more like the Goths from that edition that you were talking about the first time that they got their codex,
Yep.
I would be happy with that, but I don't think that would narratively fit them anymore,
Now,
unfortunately.
these days, probably not, because
Which is a shame.
it looks too human, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
It
It
does,
just
yeah.
it looks way too human. It
Yeah,
worked back
100%.
then. It worked. I mean, you even had back then the Storm Boys. Do you remember the Storm Boys that were dressed in basically SS uniforms?
Yeah, they could bring them out now. They wouldn't cause a
Oh,
controversy. It'd be okay.
no, they wouldn't cause a storm.
It'd be fine.
It'd be fine. It wouldn't. It wouldn't.
Did you say they wouldn't cause a storm?
Yeah, I didn't mean that. I
Let's
did
end the
not. That was
podcast. We're done.
totally
We're done.
unconscious.
End the podcast.
I did not mean that. The puns burn. But God, yeah, I mean, I remember their miniatures so well, so well, but they're distinctly un-orky now, aren't they?
Super, very unorky, yeah.
Like, you know what did it? It was Gorka Morka.
Yeah,
When,
that was like when they got the real big shift into
yeah,
what I guess orcs are now. And
yeah,
haven't you or Adam said before that they're still using some of those molds
yep,
now?
they still are. Yeah, I mean, a
That's
lot of
right, yeah.
the boys molds they were using are still
That's
from
the
that
one.
era. You know, they're ancient,
Yeah.
archaic, you know. But that was the big shift. That was the big shift away from the sort of really comic booky, cartoony orcs from Second Ed, which I love, by the way. I absolutely
Oh
love
yeah.
those guys. But into something that's more of its own, that's
Yes.
more redolent of what orcs were like in fantasy battle, really, where they were a bit dirty and a bit grubby and like patchwork, like bits
Hmm.
stapled to them and whatnot, which I like too. I think that works fine. The big problem with the shift from Gorka Morka is everything went brown.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the era because video games were doing that.
Yep.
Most Warhammer did that. It's
Yep.
like if you can say anything about the early 2000s, it was a good painting of gray or brown
It was a
on
murky
everything.
time in
It was,
general,
yeah.
wasn't it? You know?
Grungy.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And for the orcs, that doesn't really work. They
Yeah.
do have this like really bright, colourful ethos about them that I like. I think it works better when they do have these big, like bright bad moon yellows and things going on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But these guys are bright and they do have loads of colour on them, but they also have that grungy aesthetic too. And it works. It works really well. They look legitimate. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's because they've given them a nice bright green as well. If you wanted to make them grungy,
Hmm.
if that was your thing, don't worry. If you just paint them in a very dark
Yeah.
green, I'm sure that would kind of give the same kind of effect.
Just do the
But like
armour
you say,
like
it's
rusted
so much
metal.
more character. Yeah,
Yeah.
rusted metals. Yeah, so much more character in these things. They look great.
It
Really,
looks
really nice.
like it's going to be a great miniatures range, like a really strong miniatures range, like the Necrons, you know? It looks like it's going to be just like the Necrons was, a really impressive wholesale reimagining. And of course, they've
Hmm,
got to do it. They've got to do it because they've got to fit these new orcs in with the new Garthkull miniature.
that's true.
You know, they've already established what the aesthetics are going to be, which is just over the top.
Yeah,
For
I suppose that's a
me,
nice stretch around to talk about the war boss as well that we saw, right?
oh, he's great.
He's really
Oh,
I like the beast snaggers. I think this orc war boss is better.
yeah.
It's more in my style. It's more of the classic orc look, and he looks
And
amazing.
he's a
He
goth
looks
as
so good.
well. I mean, he's from the
Yeah,
clans. He's from Garthkull's own clan. He's got the checker mark of the goths. He's got the black, you know,
hmm
and that snotling, that Gretchen on his back through the gun. Awesome,
very
awesome.
fun. That's again like something that you wouldn't have gotten a few years back. The fun little element
No,
of a goblin, Gretchen being on top of the gun,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it makes sense as well. He can't he needs something to shoot with,
yeah.
but his hands are full with the giant axe, so
He's too
someone
busy
else
with
can
his
do it.
giant multi-bladed axe thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is very orky. You know, it's
super duper.
the that's a codex I want. It's a codex I desperately want because I want to see what they've done with them.
Well, hopefully it should be a bit more significant than the last Orc Codex, which I remember you guys or us talking about how disappointing and lame that last one
For
was.
the orcs have really suffered with the last couple of editions. Really,
Yeah.
they just haven't gotten the shot in the arm that they needed. And the orcs have always had it difficult, to be honest. Since Second Ed, they've struggled to find a place for them.
Mm.
Because they're a horde army, but they're also a strong and tough army. They're a close combat army, but also with very unusual shooting elements. It's difficult to find like where they sit, you know?
Yeah, I imagine it's really difficult to figure up rules for them because, like you said, the tech can also just randomly blow up
Yep.
sometimes as well. So how do you put that in a game element that's fun but
But
not
workable.
broken?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
actually works. I mean, they've always had issues with it. I mean, for me, the orcs, along with Chaos, should probably be one of the most random armies in the game. With orcs, I don't mind the random elements because it makes sense. You know, it
Hmm.
makes perfect sense. Like, so your shock attack gun, I kind of want it to have a big dice six table where it like teleports units all over the place or turns units inside out or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I kind of want that. I want there to be a situation where your weird boy's head can explode. You know, I kind of love it. I kind of love it myself. But at the same time, that is difficult to balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad I'm not a rules writer.
Yeah, me
Let's just
too.
say that.
Because like random elements can be just a pain in the arse. They really can. They tried
Yeah,
it.
because you can just get screwed over. Like you roll a one, like you say,
Hmm.
you do 10 explodes, you roll it again, it blows up your next general's
Hmm.
head, etc. etc. And you could, like, with bad luck, you could pretty much nuke all of your like special
Yeah.
characters, I suppose.
Yeah, but through no fault of your own. So it's not like you
Yeah,
made a
pretty much.
tactical error. It's just random, you know.
Yeah.
The sixth Ed Chaos Space Marine Codex had loads of random elements in it, and it was a bastard. It didn't work. It just didn't work. You could have characters like devolving into Chaos Spawn. You could have characters ascending to Demon Princes, but then losing certain key bits of equipment along the
Oh
way.
no.
It was a pain. It was an absolute shite hawk of a codex that was. Nobody liked it. Nobody liked it. Fortunately, they've sort of done away with those elements now.
Thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully they're done. But I'm hoping. I mean, the Necron Codex is brilliant. The
Hmm.
Drukhari Codex is brilliant. I mean, the Drukhari Codex. We need to do a whole episode on that. I mean, God, have you seen the conversations about that are going on?
I've seen you and Adam go back and forth on it, and it just flies over my head, and I go,
Oh,
okay.
oh, it's contentious. The Drukhari one. It's contentious because it's our winner.
Well, here's a question. Has there been, that you know of, or that you've seen people react to, has there been a bad codex release since the release of Indomitus?
Nope. Since ninth ed, no.
Good. That's great.
No, they're all good. They're all really good, and some of them are really good. So the Necron one, the Death Guard one, is stupendous.
Mm.
The Drukhari one, the Death Guard and the Drukhari are about level pegging.
Okay. Oh, that's great.
And who'd have thought that? Like, who'd have ever thought that? A Chaos Codex and a Xenos Codex are top of the tier at the moment.
Mm.
How cool is that? I mean, I'm over the moon with that. I really am. But all of them are good. All of them are good. The other one that's probably pretty close to the same tier is the Dark Angels.
Ah, okay.
The Dark Angels Supplemental Codex for the Space Marines. This sounds a little antagonistic, but I do get the impression that most of the people who are complaining about the Drukhari Codex are Space Marines players, and I think it's just because they've been on easy mode for the last 3 or 4 generations.
Well, they do still have a lot of anti-everything stuff, I
Yes,
suppose. So,
that's it.
but it's nice to hear that maybe Space Marines will have a challenge. I guess my concern is when I hear this stuff, because I haven't looked at the rules,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what I would do as a Necron person. Not that I've played as the Necrons, I
Yeah.
just have a Necron army.
Hmm.
Because Necrons are slow,
They're slow.
and the Drukhari are very fast, like you've said.
Actually, in the new codex, they are the fastest thing in the game. They can
Yeah.
get to your lines in turn 1 so easily. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. Combination of a few naughty tricks, a few vehicles, a few stratagems, and you're behind enemy lines. You know,
Mm.
you're certainly within firing range, and that's where you want to be. You know.
Not if you're the other player.
No, definitely not. But then again, the Necrons do have some good counters to that. They're
Oh, really?
slow, but they've got loads of teleportation stuff,
Ah,
loads of it now. And they've also got lots of units that phase in and out of reality, like the Eucanoptech elements.
right.
And also loads of weaponry that basically, it covers most battlefields in terms of range.
Do you know if the Necrons have all of their Mancers out yet? Because I know they've got the Psi-Mance. Have we got the... Oh, the Chronomancer's exclusive, isn't it? To the Nexus Pride
Yes,
boss.
but there is one coming out, isn't there?
I think so.
There is a Chronomancer model that's supposed to be coming out. I don't know when. The
Right. I couldn't remember if
Plasmancer
they were all
is the
out.
Plasmancer out?
The Plasmancer was the first one now,
Yeah,
right?
that's the first one
But it
out.
was with Indomitus.
Yeah.
Oh no, that I can't remember.
Can't remember.
I know
off the
that
top
I
of my
know there's
head.
3, and then there's the standard one.
That's right. You've got your Cryptek model, which is the standard Cryptek. Then you've got your Plasmancer, Chronomancer, and the other one,
That's right, yeah.
which I can't remember.
Psi-Mancer?
Psymancer, is that what it is? I can't remember.
Psychomancer. I
Something
think that's
like
the one.
that. I can't quite remember off the top of my head if they're
Yeah.
out yet.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if they'd all came out yet or not. I
But
thought they had.
a fight between the Drukhari and the Necrons is going to be a lot of fun.
I think it should be, again, because they're ancient enemies,
They're ancient
so
enemies,
that makes
and
sense.
you've got this wonderful like clash of different technologies going on as well, which I really love. Like the Necron technology is significantly different in the way it works than the Drukhari technology. So it's very interesting to see. They're also both very strong at long range. Both of them are.
Right.
So that's good. Yeah, it's going to be bloody. It really is. You've just got to be careful with the Drukhari because they can table you like in the first 2 turns. If you've got a really canny player, they can table you. And frankly, if as and when I get back to having some battles, that's what I'm going to be trying to do. It's the missions, forget them. Forget taking objectives. That's not what they're about. They're crap at taking objectives. They're crap at it. So if
Yeah, I
you,
would imagine so, because like you said, the glass cannons, if
oh,
they're that quickly to get turned to dust, then
right.
yeah, no,
You
no,
don't
no
you
dice.
don't try to take objectives with the Drukhari. You just don't. It's not going to win. It's not going to work for you. You keep the enemy away from objectives and you try to table them.
Yeah.
You obliterate them. That's the way you do it, and you can. You've got the means to do so.
Mm.
But yeah, it makes me wonder: are the orcs going to keep up that level? I hope so.
You'd hope so. It'd be interesting to see I mean, if they're doing lots of different clans, what the main play style is. Like, what's the base play style?
Yeah,
Because
what
obviously
is?
these beast hunter dudes are there. Like, it seemed like from the video they were suggesting that they were the anti-Imperial Knight or
Yes.
the Imperial Knight equivalent,
It
which is
looks
just a
like
great idea.
they are clearly going to have some special rule whereby if they're taking down like a monstrous or titanic creature, they do extra mortal wounds or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, there
That's
must be
what I
there for like
guess.
an anti-monolith, I
Yeah,
guess, is another thing.
yeah,
Anti-monolith, anti-knight, whatever the big space marine
yeah.
tank is.
Which is great because that is one of the key and most consistent complaints about the orcs, that they've got no answer to these things.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they needed, and it's exactly what they've done.
Yes,
So,
and it's in an unconventional way because, like,
right.
usually I would imagine the thought process behind making an anti-knight orc thing would just be a knight, but what if orc?
Yeah, yeah. So it'd be like a little stomper or something,
Yeah,
or
exactly. And they didn't go that way. They
a
went a completely
gargant,
different way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pleased with the way it's gone. They've done it in a very orky and very unusual way, which is great.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's about time. I mean, the orcs deserve to be on top again. They really do. There was a time when the orcs were one of the key races in 40k. They were one
That's
of
right.
the
Yeah.
most significant races. And they haven't been really, I would say, since Second Ed.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
They've been a kind of like get you by army. Sort of like, we'll throw the Orc Codex out. Everyone likes the Orcs. Let's just throw an Orc Codex out. But
Yeah.
not much attention has been paid to them.
Until now, thankfully.
Until now, yeah.
Seemingly. I mean, this could all go downhill very quickly.
Oh,
I don't
God,
think
yeah.
it will, but never say never.
Let's see. Yeah, let's see. I mean, from what we've seen, I'm excited.
Same. Yeah,
As a
definitely. I'm
non-orc
not like
player, as a non-orc
No,
player,
same.
I'm excited, and I'm liking that other people are excited for this.
You know what the worst thing about the orcs is, I found, because I painted some orcs. The worst thing about orcs are they're really fun to paint.
Yeah.
Because they have very good expressions on the faces, so that you can. I have a lot easier time painting an orc face than I do a human face.
Yeah. They're so expressive, aren't they? And they're so big.
They really are.
They're so
Yeah.
big compared to like a human-faced model.
Oh, definitely.
There's so much going on there. I can see how they would be fun. It's the same thing you get with a lot of like the demon models, like your plague bearers,
Ooh,
where
true.
they're really expressive and exaggerated and fun. Compared to like, say, I mean, the real sons of bitches are the Eldari.
Oh, well, those have to be clean.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the Eldari. The paint schemes for them have to be clean, so you can't just like throw a wash on them and hope for the best.
No, you cannot.
Unfortunately.
Doesn't work.
You can, but you've probably you've done your own scheme, but you haven't done arguably the right scheme, the canonical scheme.
Yeah. If you look at like
scheme, that's a nice way to say it.
If you look at like the Lumineth, for example,
oh god,
you've just got to have an exquisite painting style to do those miniatures justice. And I mean exquisite. It's got to be practiced and honed,
Yeah, I've got Lumineth to paint up from my box set, and I'm not looking forward to
it. Yeah, they're lovely. I mean, they're gorgeous, but boy, are they pains to paint. But yeah, this I mean, exciting. I'm excited for this. And also we got another preview as well, didn't we? Just a very brief one on what's coming down the line, which is it looks like we're going to get a boxed set, which is it's the Thousand Sons and the Grey Knights.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what's in there to
Yeah.
make the Thousand Suns more significant, because I think both you and I have said again previously that
They need a
they
lot.
need something,
They need a lot.
especially compared to, like, as you said in this podcast, the Death
The
Guard.
Death
That's so
Guard.
good.
Yeah,
So
the Death Guard is a
how do you
full
bring
miniatures
these guys
range.
up?
It's a full
Yeah.
miniatures range. They've got their answer to everything. They've got their miniature and their unit that fulfills every role you could possibly want. They are a complete army now.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, and I imagine they will, if they follow the same pattern as the Death Guard, it means the demon units that they used to bulk out the 8th Thousand Sons Codex won't be there.
You'd hope so, because the Death Guard don't rely on demons to fill out their numbers.
Right.
They have unique units for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the Thousand Sons have your basic rubric, your Scarab Occult, your Sorcerer.
Mm-hmm. They need a lot more. They need a lot more. I mean, well, there's the Zarngor, obviously.
No,
the Zarngor
no
are great.
demons. Not counting demons.
Well, they're not
have anything
demons.
else?
They're not demons. The Zarngor are their own thing. They're mutants, you know.
Potato.
Yeah. So like, you're talking about like something that's a bit more specific to the Legion of the
Yes.
Thousand Sons. Not really,
Yeah.
no. I mean,
I didn't think so.
one thing they could do, which they probably should do for my money, they need to introduce units of sorcerers. Like Thrall sorcerers. Little warbands of sorcerers. That's how they've always fought. Like, if you go back to the ROC days, the Thousand Sons army list has these. It has cultists, but it also has these sort of like acolytes, these thrall bands of mortal psychers, which are part of the population of Sorciarius. And the way they worked back then was that not only could the units like cast psychic powers collectively, the Thousand Sons could also sacrifice them to bolster their own psychic powers.
If they did something fresh with that, you could do some really interesting things.
That'd be great.
I mean,
fun.
I suppose you could sacrifice them to maybe heal units
or get a
regrow
+1 to your
model
casting.
back.
Get +1 to your casting or something like that.
Or shooting, a defense,
Yeah.
your roll saves. Yeah, that'd be great.
That
That'd
would
be a good
work
idea.
so well, and it would make perfect sense. And you know what? They don't even need to do that much with it. And even I could take this, given that the Thousand Sons already have loads of AOS units from the Disciples of Zeech anyway, just use the Kyric Acolytes models. It's fine. It's fine. They've done it with the Zarngor. Do it with the Kyric Acolytes. They work, they fit, they look right, you know?
It'd be nice if they had a bit more of their own look, but if push comes to shove and they just want to kind of throw some stuff out, okay,
that's fine.
That
I don't mind that. In fact, I think they should. I mean, as well as introducing their own new stuff, which they do need, the Thousand Sons do need. I want to see more like 40k units. I want to see more demon engines that belong to the Thousand Sons and are not just from the Chaos Space Marine Codex. For one thing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't they have big psychic like dreadnoughts, for example? Why would they not have psychic dreadnoughts in the same way that the Blood Angels have their librarian dreadnoughts?
Yeah, rubric dreadnought or something like that would be fun.
Something like that would be great. The unique demon engines they used to have, so they need a big miniature, like a lot of the the armies have. They don't have one, so a silver tower or part of a silver tower.
Yep.
Why not?
Terrain piece. Yeah, because the Death Guard have a terrain piece, don't they? They have the weird fungi factories or something, whatever they're
malignant plague caster, or no, no, that's the wizard. The toxic malignifier or something like that.
Looks like a lung, doesn't it?
Yes.
That's got tubes that poops out just fumes into the air.
That's it. Yeah, the Thousand Sons
need
their own, you know?
Yeah.
They do need their own. And a part of a silver tower would be perfect. It doesn't need to be the whole thing, you know, because they...
yeah, because it's too big.
It's too big. But they fluctuate in and out of dimensions anyway. So just like a shard or something like that would be fine.
Yeah, totally.
Anything like that would be great. One thing they could also introduce, which used to exist way back when, is disc riders.
Are they not in anymore?
Not really, no. I mean, you've got disc riding beastmen.
Ah, you don't want
which
that.
is fine. But what about disc riding sorcerers of Zeech?
Sorcerers.
That I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you can take them as HQ units, but what about as a fast attack option?
Totally,
Why
yeah.
not?
And they need something kind of fast because if I remember, rubrics are not
No,
like
really
fast.
slow,
Yeah.
really dead slow. I mean, they've got a lot of ways of getting around it. In the 8th Ed Codex, they've got loads of ways of like teleporting about the battlefield and whatnot to get over that.
Mm.
But some fast attack units would be really nice. Sorcerers on the backs of discs of each sound perfect, you know?
Oh, totally.
Some more unique demon engines like the Doom Wings or the Fire Lords from Epic, from old Epic, you know? That would be great. That would be
Be
wonderful.
interesting. Yeah,
But
I'd
they
be in for
need
that.
it. They desperately need it.
Oh, they need something.
They
Anything will
can't
do.
just throw in like the stuff they've had before. It's not going to work. It's not a complete codex.
No,
Unfortunately, it's just not going to work. They at least need to be bulked out to the same degree as the Death Guard, you know?
I think the problem with this Real Hope is I think the assumption should be for this box set that it's just going to be similar to the Drukhari box set, which
Mhm.
was we give you one new miniature and
Yeah,
that's it.
that's not going to work for the Thousand Sons. The Drukhari is
No.
fine because the Drukhari have got models for everything.
Yeah.
You know, their entire miniatures range is catered for, so that's great. Thousand Sons isn't. The Thousand Sons isn't. It needs new units to work, to function
Yeah.
as an army. It's also going to be really interesting because this is the first time we're going to have the really psychic heavy armies making their appearance in Ninth Ed.
That's true. Yeah.
So
So
we're
maybe this one new leader
mm,
character is somehow going to make up for the fact that they're probably not going to be getting more
mm,
units.
they
Maybe
it,
that's the idea.
it
I
would
don't know
have
how
to.
you justify that, but
Yeah. It would have to. I mean, another thing I would love them to introduce. You know how the Death Guard have got their specialist units, like your Plague Surgeon and your
oh
um,
yeah.
stuff like that. But for the Thousand Sons, why can't there be different types of sorcerer that perform different functions?
Oh, totally. I
On,
mean, they were
you
back in
know,
the day. So yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Have a specialized sorcerer that
Why
does a
not?
specialized skill, a buffed one, a
Yeah,
offensive, a defensive,
yeah,
a teleport, a movement one, like you say, so he can teleport everyone across the
yeah.
battlefield all the time.
That
Yeah,
are maybe
totally.
from different cults within
Yeah,
the Thousand Sons, which we know exist. You know.
totally.
That would be wonderful. That would be absolutely wonderful. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. And I mean, I really hope they get the time and attention they deserve because the Thousand Sons are one of my favorite armies from 40k.
Mm.
I love the Thousand Sons so much. I really, really hope they give them a good old shot in the arm. You know, there's even like a lot of AOS units that they could port over that make sense, like the oh, that Zeech demon sorcerer thing with the eyes. What's it called?
Strange demon sorcerer with the eyes.
Ah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember what it's called. The things that control the silver towers. Um,
I'm not sure.
oh, I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head. But
Is it a
they,
current model that's out?
yeah, yeah. It's you
Alright.
can take them in either slaves to darkness or disciples of Zeech armies. Um, oh, that's gonna kill me. That is. But
Not the changeling.
not the
No.
changeling. No, you can take that in a not in a Thousand Sons army, but in like a Zeech demon army already. Um,
Magistra?
no, although you could get away with putting the Magisters into a Zeech army, into a Thousand Sons army, that would work too.
Mm.
Um, you could get away with a lot of the Disciples of Zeech stuff in a Thousand Sons force. You really could, and it would work. It would function fine because they are that kind of weird mix of the occult and fantastical and the science fiction. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of the big monsters you could get away with. That cat thing, the Sphyranx from the Slaves to Darkness, that would fit with the Egyptian theme of the Thousand Sons like you wouldn't believe.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, give it some new rules to do
Right.
something a little bit different. Yeah,
All
yeah,
you
that could
need to
work.
do, rejig the background. Oh, it's one of the many mutants from the Sorciarius that roams the plains of Sorciarius. Pfft, why not?
The wizards breed them because they're good
Yeah.
familiars. Something,
Right.
something.
Right. Something, 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 something. Yeah. Why
Yeah,
not? Go for it. Why not? That would be grand insofar
that
as
would
I'm
be
concerned.
What do you think of the idea of the sorcerers breeding these creatures for familiar types and having kind of a beast aspect, so then you'd have something fast as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, we know for a fact that like the Thousand Sons, they have this thing about like the mutants of Sorciarius and the mutated creatures that Zeech sort of cultivates anyway, because they regard them as blessed, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
They've been touched by the mutative power of Zeech, so they respect them. That's why they have the Zangor flocks in their armies, you know?
Hmm.
They actually do respect them as the true children of Zeech, so there's no reason why you couldn't have like a horde of abominations here.
Like I say, I don't think this is what we're going to get from this set,
No,
unfortunately.
I
Just
don't think it
by
is.
going off what we've had previously.
And of
Clearly, you're
course,
not as that excited for the the Grey Knights.
yeah, the Grey Knights,
I'm assuming, right?
not that bothered. Not that bothered.
No, okay,
But
that's
I
fair.
mean, they are often counterpointed to the Thousand Sons these days
Yes.
because they are kind of the Imperial equivalent, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It's
That
a good. I mean, the box set. If you were going to peg a box set to me, I'd go probably the classic, which would be against Space Wolves. But
yeah,
this is great as well.
this is cool as well. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they haven't done the classic like Thousand Sons versus Space Wolves thing for a long time.
Maybe for the best, because maybe it's a bit
It's
too obvious,
it's
I
a little
guess.
played out, isn't it now? It's
Yeah.
a little played out. I mean, the last time they did it was when they reintroduced the Thousand Sons back in seventh ed,
Oh God.
with the assault on Fenris,
Right. Okay.
the
That long
last
ago.
assault on Fenris. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was the last time they clashed. Yeah.
Oh.
They've actually had fights with the Dark Angels since then,
Huh.
which is ironic because the Dark Angels are also enemies of the Space Wolves. So you know,
They should get together, be friends.
that probably isn't going to happen.
No, probably not.
Given that
There's
during the war in
bit of that.
Fenris, the Dark Angels bombarded Fenris, you know, under the auspices.
No, I'm in the Thousand Sons and the Dark Angels should be
That's
friends
more likely.
against the wolves.
Well, two Chaos Forces.
I mean, you know,
Two
yeah,
Chaos
totally.
Forces, yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. We also had what day was it they did the Black Library stuff? Because we actually got. I mean, I'm not that bothered about most of the stuff, but I was very excited to see the new Gaunt's Ghosts.
Yeah, that was day 3, so I guess Wednesday.
That was a bit out of left field, and I suppose what excites me more than anything, I mean, you know, the Gaunt's Ghosts books are really good. They're written by Dan Abnett, and they're great fun.
How long have they been going on for?
A long
While,
time.
right?
Long time. Well, the Gaunt's Ghost books were some of the first that really established the Black Library as what it was, or what it's become. You know, they kind of put it on the map alongside the likes of Storm of Iron by Graham McNeil and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So they've got a kind of pedigree behind them. They really do push the way people. I mean, when the Gaunt's Ghost novels came out originally, they changed the way the Imperial Guard, as they were, Astra Militarium as they now are, it changed their entire ethos and aesthetic. It actually altered the way they occur in the background and the game. So that's how significant they are.
Yeah.
It really does. It did redraw what commissars are, how they function. You know.
Wow. Yeah, like you say, super important then.
It's very important. I mean, these miniatures are great too. They are all individuals. Every single one of them is a character.
Yeah. Oh, they're fantastic. I'm not going to say this is an issue, but do you see on the commissar how they've painted the cloak to be like a camo?
Yeah.
Good luck doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Best of luck with that one.
Like I couldn't do that. I know for a fact I couldn't do that.
No. But yeah, I mean, Ibrahim Gaunt is a really significant character. And the fact that they've released these miniatures, for me, kind of suggests it's a teaser for the Astra Militarium, isn't it? You know?
Kind of, because we got the parts of Great Kit, which to me says we're not going to be making new Imperial Guards for a very long
Not
time.
for a while. But I imagine...
Which is kind of a shame.
It is a shame. But I imagine if, as and when they do get round to it, this is the kind of aesthetic they're going to be going for, where every miniature is unique.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Like,
Well,
I could see, like, maybe them doing... What are the jungle dudes called again?
Oh, the Catachan jungle fighters.
Yeah, this screams to me Catachan.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. When it comes round to doing the Astra Militarium again, I really hope they go hard for that. You know, the notion that all of the different platoons come from different worlds.
Yeah, it'd be nice, but I imagine like because there are so many, at least so many named ones, that could be quite difficult.
Difficult, yeah. So you've got like the Mordian Iron Guard, the Catachan Jungle Fighters, the Cadian Shock Troops, all those
Actually, saying that,
guys.
I shouldn't I shouldn't let them off by saying it's too difficult to do that because they're just doing that with the orcs.
Right,
So
right.
I shouldn't let them off the bat and say,
Not
"Oh no, it's
really.
fine, it's hard."
Well, the
It's like,
thing
well, they're
is,
doing it with the
they've
orcs.
got
They're
to
doing
do
it with
something special. It seems to me if they're going to
yeah.
do the Astra Militarium to make them stand out in this universe that's full of like really interesting aliens and monsters and abhumans and whatnot, they need to do something really special with them. And the
Oh
way
yeah.
they can do that is by making each of the miniatures a little work of art.
Yeah. Giving them a
That's
culture, a
Yeah,
background, a
that's
setting.
the way to
Yeah.
do it. Make every miniature like a little diorama, a character in and of itself. And that even makes sense in the background because once again, these guys, these human beings who are not genetically augmented or like altered in any way, they've survived. They are out there fighting these like hyper evolved aliens or demons from beyond time and space. So yeah, they are hard people.
Well, at least the ones that survive.
The ones that survived, which is not many of them.
No, it's not many.
It's not many of them. Yeah, we know that. We know that. I mean, like in any real terms, humanity would have been extinct a long time ago, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
On
There's
that
a reason the
scale.
Space Marines are around.
Right, right.
And then the rest of the idea is just throw humans at the enemy until they stop,
Yeah.
which usually doesn't work either, from what
No,
I remember.
it doesn't in the fiction.
No,
It definitely doesn't in the fiction. If you've got
no.
humans, if you've got squishy humans in the fiction, they're going to die really quickly.
Yeah.
Very, very often, anyway. But yeah, I like these miniatures a lot. I am never, ever, ever going to get them.
Is that just because you've no interest in humans,
I have
or
no interest. Yeah, I have no interest. It's the same
no?
part
Same.
of me that has no interest in like GI Joe or whatever as a toy
That's
line.
fair.
It's like don't
Well,
care.
no, the reason you get into GI Joe is for Cobra.
Yeah.
Who likes GI Joe? Not me. I like Cobra though.
Like Cobra, yeah.
I really respect the Imperial Guard visually because I think it's really like I'm not going to say boring, but compared to everything else, it's got a more mundane look to it. Like it looks more feasible
Yeah.
in a lot of ways
It's
because it's
kind
less
of,
science fiction-y.
it's
But that's kind of
restrained,
why I like
isn't
it
it?
as well.
It's restrained, yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas
but I
everything
do like it.
else tends towards elaboration, doesn't it? So you look at the new Space Marine miniatures, they just get more and more and more elaborate as time goes on. Whereas the Astra Militarium, they tend towards the opposite aesthetic, which actually works for them really well.
It does make them really distinct in the universe by how again, not simplistic, but how mundane they are in
Yeah,
some ways. It's a dude with a gun
yeah, how
and a bit
uniform
of
they
body
are.
armor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it's one of those armies I am kind of intrigued by. I wouldn't
Yeah.
ever buy it, but I'm intrigued by where it sits and how it's going to function now.
No, I always like playing them in Dawn of War games. I think that was I wouldn't want to own them as an actual army, but I
Yeah.
think they were. It was interesting to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of just units of men go forward,
Yeah.
and men and women go forward with crappy guns into an enemy force backed up by a load of tanks. That's very fun.
I fought against them quite a lot. One of my old gaming partners used to collect Astra Militarium because he used to be a historical war gamer. So like the Imperial
that's perfect for
Guard,
them.
well, they were a great gateway for him, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
He actually ended up ultimately playing Tyranids, so like we're well off the scale there. But he
Went
really
from
liked.
one horde army to a different kind of horde
Yeah,
army.
kind of. So that was interesting. It was really fun playing against them. This was back in 4th Ed when I was still using the 3.5 Chaos Space Marine Codex, when that was still in vogue.
Was that the good one?
It was
Or
the good
bad
one, yeah, the
Okay.
really good one. The one that everybody laments the loss of, basically,
Right,
you know.
right.
The high point for Chaos, basically. And he was using the superb Imperial Guard 4th Ed Codex, like the really good one. And they were tough. They were difficult to shift.
Wow.
They really were. Just because of the way they worked. There were so many of them, and they had so many bloody tanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
phalanxes of tanks, like phalanxes of the things. It was just like you were
What did his army
lucky.
consist of the most out of interest? Was it primarily tanks, or did he have a lot of
Primarily, it was
guards?
primarily tanks backed up by big blocks of infantry.
Right.
Just big blocks of infantry. There wasn't much else to it, to be
I
honest.
guess, yeah, that's true.
And it was really difficult. It was always a challenge to fight against that. It was a challenge to get across the table, for one thing.
Mm.
Because almost all of the, I don't know how it is now, but back then, the Imperial Guard, almost all of their weaponry was guess range. So it could hit almost
Oh
anywhere on the
God,
table.
that's insane.
Yeah, right?
Is this like back in the day where you had to judge your cannonball blasts and bounces?
That's kind of it, yeah. Yeah.
Nuts.
Way back when.
It's
Way
kind of
back
good
when.
that they got rid of that.
Yeah, yeah,
It,
it
it
is.
it takes away a slight fun element, but also really
A
irritating.
really irritating,
element.
like, nitpicky element as well.
It's just super nitpicky.
I think back to Second Ed when, like, vehicles had hit
Oof.
areas where you had to, like,
Yeah.
determine which part of the vehicle you hit, and
Didn't it have a really bad like turn mechanic as well?
oh god, you had to, like,
It had a
turning.
protractor or
It
something,
was a
right?
Oh, yes, turning. Vehicles had like a turn move where they could like pivot in particular ways, but each vehicle pivoted in different bloody ways.
Mm.
So it was like, oh my god, so I've got to spend this turn pivoting that way.
What a pain.
Oh my god, yeah, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare back then.
You can see where they're coming from. It makes sense, but it's one of those things you look back at now and think, why would
In
anyone put this in? Because it's not fun.
Right, in realistic terms, yeah, it makes total sense. But you
Yeah.
know, this was back in the day that when you hit something with a flamer, it stayed on fire. You know, it actually burned throughout like several turns. Um, just
Kind of
mental.
like that.
Absolutely crazy. And every single weapon had its own template.
Ah, the
So,
good old cardboard
yep,
ones.
yep. So if you got
Yeah.
like your second ed Chaos Space Marine Codex, it had templates for blight grenades, and it had templates for doom sirens on your noise marines, and
As it should be.
oh my god, the one for the Doom Siren, I remember it really well. It was this wave-shaped template, and the way it would work was you would set it off, you would blast it, and it would diminish in strength and frequency as it went.
Oof.
So you had to like calculate all the time how much it was diminishing in strength as it was moving. It was oh Jesus,
Woof.
just yeah. Lots of detail, lots of detail, but a bit much, you know?
Yeah, it sounds like it. It
Bit
sounds a bit
much.
faff.
Not quite as bad as Rogue Trader, though.
Oh, I'm sure.
Not quite as
Oh,
bad
no,
as Rogue
no
Trader.
doubt.
Rogue Trader was basically an RPG, you know?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But yeah, what else did we have? What else is going on
Day
in
one was
Warhammer
pretty good.
Fest? What was going on day one? Let me have a look.
Do you want me to tell you about day one?
Yeah, go on, go on.
Well, just a quick summary, then we can go in bit by bit. We have Broken Realms Kragnos. We had the
Oh
reveal of
God,
Kragnos.
yes!
We
Bloody
had the
hell!
it wasn't really a reveal, but it was kind of a loop back around for the other minis that were coming out related to that. So you've got the two
Mhm.
witch hunters, you got
Yes.
Frog who isn't dead, and you got
Frog
your
who isn't dead. Yeah.
Frog who isn't dead, and you got your Slanesh girls, boys,
Oh
people,
my
demon
god,
things.
this book. Oh, Broken Realms Kragnos. As we said at the beginning, the Broken Realms books have been brilliant. They've been
Yeah,
just generally incredible. This one looks like it could be a game changer.
another one,
Another
another game
one.
changer.
Right. First of all, Kragnos himself, I mean, that's a wild card if ever there was one.
Yeah, he was clear. To me, it looks like he was either a Centaur or something from
He
the Sylvanian range. The
he
Sylvanian.
wasn't
Sylvaner.
originally sculpted to be part of what is he? Is he
Destruction.
destruction? He
Yeah.
clearly wasn't. He was gonna be either, I think, something either from the Sylvaneth or the Beastmen, the
It has
Beasts
a
of
lot
Chaos.
of that in him. A lot of Beastmen in him.
Yeah, but that said, I think he's really cool, and I like the
Yes.
fact that he is this force of destruction, and that he's kind of like a unifying factor for the forces of destruction. For one thing, he kind of sweeps the board clean a little bit. So you've got your god miniature for destruction now.
Yes.
You don't need to muck about with Gorkamorka or with whatever the giants, the ogres have. You've got it. You've got it here. And
Yeah.
he sounds really interesting. He's some sort of wild card entity that doesn't belong to any particular race, that doesn't really belong anywhere, but is just this like elemental force of devastation.
The perfect example of the Destruction Alliance. It's a perfect example.
Yeah, totally. Kind of anarchic, he's not quite
Yep.
one thing or another. But it's really good fun that the Aurochs are getting in line behind him, I kind of like
Yeah.
that.
And it does make sense. This guy fights.
Well,
Orcs like things that fight. He'll
he's
take you to a good fight. It's all right.
what do the
Cool.
Orcs believe? What have the Aurochs always believed? The toughest is the best, and he's the
Yeah.
toughest. He's the ultimate by all accounts. And I love the way he's described as well. He is like a living earthquake.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if that'll carry over to effects on the game.
I think so. I think he's going to have big terrain effects.
Yeah.
Like really big terrain effects. And just to have a new god, like this new god outside of the established pantheons, it's so clear that they're trying to shake things up.
Yeah, I mean it's always from a business side point a really good idea to have a big expensive character, big expensive model. We have Nagash, we have what do we have? We have Marathi, I suppose, for order.
Certainly do.
Lol,
Teclis and the moon god.
Yeah,
of course. Archaon.
Yeah. And like you said, Destruction was lacking.
Totally lacking. It just didn't have anything, did it? I mean,
yeah.
we've always had teased Gorkamorka, which they could
the
do.
idea of something like Gorkamorka.
Yeah, they could.
I think I'm more happy that they're not just kind of the lazy answer and just doing the god.
Yeah.
Like we don't have a Sigma. We might never have a Sigma. So it's nice to see, and I guess it makes sense why Nagash was the big one for death, at least for that time. That might change
for that
in the future.
time. It looks like that might be changing.
Which I'd be okay with.
I'm all
there's
right
nothing
with
wrong with Nagash, but it'd be nice to have something a bit more specific for like vampires or for Yasser, Bone Reapers, etc., etc. So to have like this guy, great.
Yeah, very pleased.
It's not the obvious choice.
No, it isn't. It was a bit of a surprise, I've got to say. It was a little bit of a surprise, and I'm all up for that. But there's a lot going on in this book, isn't there? There's a lot going on. So you've got, first of all, whatever's going to happen with Kragnos, and it sounds like what they're setting up is that Asia is going to get broken open.
Ooh.
So the walls behind which Sigmar has been sequestered for the longest time, not moving, not really doing very much, just protecting his little civilization. It sounds like Kragnos is going to be the mechanism by which those walls are broken.
Yeah, or at least at the very least sieged.
At the very least.
We know there's 3.0 coming up, so it'll have to carry on from there, and we know obviously the Stormcast will win.
Yeah, what
we see of the new Stormcast, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Yeah, it sounds like they're on the hot foot, though. I mean, after Baelacor, and this is a spoiler for the Baelacor book, by the way, they are on the hot foot, because what Baelacor does in that book is he basically cuts them off from Asia.
Yes.
So you know how the Stormcast, when they die, quote unquote, their bodies dissolve into lightning and they just arc their way back to Asia where they're reformed, they're reforged. That can't happen anymore. Baelacor's cut them off.
Not with the standard ones, anyway.
Not with the standard ones, no. He's made sure that can't happen. There's actually a really, I mean, we'll talk about it more when Adam's back, but there's a really tragic bit in Baelacor where there's a whole chamber of Stormcast who are caught when that calamity happens, and they are caught between a demon army and the Night Haunt of Lady Olinda, and they start to die. They start to actually die, and their souls are captured by the Night Haunt rather than winging their way back to Izir, and it's really horrific. They're captured and tormented forevermore.
I wish I could feel bad, but I'm like, yay, ghosts.
Yeah. The Night Haunt play a big part in Baelacor, and they've got a little bit of a shot in the arm as well in Baelacor too, which is nice.
I mean, I'll talk about this in the Age of Sigmar 3.0, but I hope this means that the Night Haunt will get a new codex. I don't need new units. I think they're really good for the units at the moment. but a new book to give them some fancy rules and a terrain piece would
I
be really
think
appreciated.
it's very likely, you know.
I'd
I
really
think
need
it's
it.
yeah, I think it's really likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I am so excited by this. But Lord Croak, we've got Croak for the Seraphon. That miniature is
It's really
just
good.
crazy good, isn't it? It's
Amazing. Yeah.
crazy good. They've almost gone like down a Necron route with it. You know, the way that all of the turning rings and things that it's got.
Mm.
It looks like a big Necron miniature almost.
It gives me a lot of Stargate vibes,
Yep.
if you remember Stargate, the series
Yep.
and movie.
Very much so. I like, for me, I really like this notion of the Seraphon having this weird arcane technology that's made out of stone and whatnot.
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
think they should go a bit deeper with that. I want to see a
Yeah.
bit more of that myself.
Did we talk about that last time?
I think
I
we
think we
did. I
might
think we
have.
did.
And
I mean,
I think we agreed that giving them something apart from just the lizardmen would be good. Again, leaning into their actual lore that the books talk
yeah.
about is again super needed for these guys.
Well, again, there's a lot that happens in Baelacor that kind of suggests that, you know, because
Oh, really? Okay,
there's
good.
even, I mean, I shit you not, there is an honest to God 40k space battle in AOS in Baelacor
Oh,
between a silver tower and the big starships of the Seraphon.
Oh, wow.
It's
That's
really
cool.
cool. It's
Hmm.
really impressive. It's a great sequence, and it shows you just how expansive AOS has become as a mythology. You know, the fact that you can have this stuff,
Hmm.
because that would have been unthinkable in fantasy battle. It just wouldn't have happened. You know.
Yeah, it's not quite Tolkien's standard fantasy, is it?
No,
It's a little bit out there,
you're treading
literally.
more into like Ursula K. Le Guin territory here. You know. But yeah, I'm looking forward. They seem to be setting up a lot for the different armies. So the Kragnos and the Oryx, they're obviously going to get a big update. The Nighthaunt, I imagine, will, because they featured a lot and significantly, and they've got a lot of new rules now in Baelacor, and I mean a lot.
Oh, really?
There are,
Wow.
yeah, there are two.
Are these? Can they work now? Because I remember for the longest time, most
Whether
people like,
I don't know.
ooh, the Night Haunt. Oof.
I don't
Oof.
know. I'm not familiar enough with the book to say one way or the other. But
Hmm.
the rules that are in Baelacor are impressive. They're good, you know?
I guess that means that there'll have to be a new Night Haunt Codex coming out because they can't expect people to buy
Of
Baelacor just
course.
for the rules for the Night
No,
Haunt.
and of course there are new units as well. There are the Krulgast Cruciator.
Oh, which we do have. That's out now or
Yep.
is coming out, right? So
Lovely
we got
mini.
that one.
And
Is there
there's
anything
also,
else?
yes, there's this new like Banshee-like unit. I can't remember what they're called off the
Ooh.
top of my head, but they're pretty nasty. They're a nasty unit.
So that means there'll be 3 type of Banshees then?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because there's already like 2 other ones previously. I can't
Yes.
remember them off the top of my head.
So I mean, yeah, I can see the Nighthaunt after maybe the Soul Blight, you know, to balance them out.
Ah, okay. See, I wasn't sure if they were just gonna, if it was just gonna be more of a release like the Dark Angels book, where it's just here's the book. It's quite quick to come out because there's not too much to do for it. But you might be right about it coming out after, or maybe not too far after the Soul Blight vampires.
I imagine what's going to happen is because the Soul Blight vampires are going to change the dynamic of undeath in AOS so dramatically, they're going to have to release new books for the Nighthaunt and the Ossiarch. They're going to have new books and quite sharpish as well, you know, to
Or
make
flesh
sense.
eaters.
And flesh eaters as well, you know, to make sense at all. Mind you, that said, having seen some of the miniatures from the Soul Blight, it looks like maybe some aspects of the flesh eaters have been merged into them.
Well, that sounds like a good carryover to what we saw from the Night Haunt. Sorry, not the Night Haunt, the vampires, what we showed on the Monday.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God.
Luca Vai, the mother of nightmares. She's a
Jesus.
pretty lady.
Whoa. Those
What a
like
babe.
those monstrous kind of centauroid vampires that have got like the lower halves of bat-like. Oh, just give me all of that.
Yeah, it's basically a normal vampire, and then you get a Vargeist and you take its head off and you put that body of a vampire on top of its head.
Just,
What a weird
I
idea.
love it. I love it. I mean, it's a way of making these wonderful big monstrous centerpiece miniatures for the vampires. So they're not all just humanoid essentially, which is a danger
No.
of the vampires. Obviously, they're all just humanoid. but they're just so distinct. They're so
Yeah.
interesting. I want to
They
know like the background. Where do they come from? Why do they look like that?
they've definitely lent into the more uh like the two different generic vampire places, which are, do we go heavy werewolves or do we go heavy bats? And it's like, how about we go heavy on both?
Yeah, how about we do both and throw them
Yeah.
together, you know? And
I don't know about you, but I
also,
wouldn't say Luca looks like Dark Soulsy to me, but it gives me more of a Resident Evil vibe.
yeah, there's something more abominable about her than that, isn't there? There's this
Yeah.
notion that there's something unholy going on here,
Mm.
which may be redundant when it comes to vampires, but more unholy than usual, like
Yes.
Lovecraftian unholy, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where are they coming from, though? I want to know. I'm so interested in getting this book because I want to know where all these new breeds of vampire are coming from and how they're coming about. You know?
Were they always around, or is this
Mm,
something that's happened since Nagash has been taken off the board, or
mm.
at least pushed aside? Have these mutations been? Is this the idea of like, instead of you becoming a ghoul king,
You're right.
if you're a vampire, instead like the more times you go further down the line, this is how you mutate instead.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
is
the
it
idea?
like a Soul Reaver-esque thing? You know, where
Yeah.
they evolve in these really weird
Oh,
and abominable ways down the eons.
that's also an interesting way to go potentially. Yeah. Who
I, I
knows?
I love that idea. Love it to bits. And it really looks as though they're pushing the vampires to be their own very, very distinct culture. I can't wait. Can't wait to see it.
What do you think of the Vengorian Lord, which is the other way you can build the kit? Because I really like the vampiric face on that guy. It
Yeah.
almost, I don't know, because of the way the photo is taken, it almost looks like he's clawing at his collar. I don't think that's the case.
But
I think the hand's further away, further away from his head, and he's looking at his
Mhm.
hand screaming. But
It's the same kit, isn't it? I mean, you can
it
actually
is
make,
just with a
yeah,
different top.
you can make these two entities from the same kit, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool. I love them both. I've got to say, I really love them both. I would kind of like to have a couple of these knocking about, so I could do
I
both.
mean, you have to get two.
Yeah. Well, you've got to, haven't
He's
you?
at the very least, you got to get one for her and one for him because they're both very distinct. And if you're like, oh well, what do I do with the other spare parts? Depending how many spare parts, maybe you could use the body for. If you've got enough parts, like I say, maybe you could slap it onto a horse or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
something like
I don't
that.
know.
They're so
Something.
elegant, these miniatures as well. You know,
Yeah.
despite being big, monstrous, deformed miniatures, they're so elegant looking.
And thankfully do not look super thin. They look thin in
Hmm.
places, like on the edge of the wingtips. Those
Yep.
look like they'd be snappable.
Mm.
But compared to some, like a lot of the undead things, they're not like as spindly,
No,
thankfully.
no, they look a bit more robust, don't they?
Yeah, which they should be. They're not skeletons or anything like that. It's just nice to see.
I mean, we've also even got in this lot, we've got a continuation of the story of Curse City because Radukar is here.
Yes, I'm sure that was a double-edged sword for some people to see.
Hmm. Yeah.
Kind of a rub in the fact that, oh, you don't have the curse study. Well, too
Hmm.
bad.
Hmm.
But yeah, I
Hmm.
really like you know what Radikar is? Radikar is Dracula
Yeah.
from Castlevania.
Yeah. That's
You
exactly what he is.
beat him round one, and then he turns into his big monster form
Yeah.
round two.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
100%.
He looks like, I mean, he's obviously been ousted from the Cursed City. You know, he's not
Yes.
ruling it anymore.
Yeah, narratively, you beat him.
Yeah.
And then he goes, right, fine, I'm going to turn into my monster form
Yeah.
and go out into the world and wreck stuff.
He looks like he's in the wilderness, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Like
He looks
the
like he,
wilderness of Shaiish or Gur or
right,
something like that.
like
Yeah.
he's wandering wild out there.
Mm.
The way when I look at the miniature, I get this sense of snow like sifting around him. You know what I mean?
Oh, I can see that.
It also looks like he is going to command a very particularly ghoulish type of vampire, doesn't it?
Yeah, the ones you get like two or three of them in the Cursed City.
Mm,
Yeah, those kind of wolfen
yeah,
kind
the sort of
ones.
feral vampires.
Yeah,
I wonder, are they going to slowly phase out the flesh eaters?
and replace them with these.
What do you think? Is it possible?
Maybe because the more wolf vampires, at least around his legs, do look
They
crypt ghouly.
they look a lot like crypt ghouls, don't they?
Yeah,
They look like they fulfill the same bracket as crypt ghouls.
potentially. Yeah, I wouldn't be against it. Like
No.
they're a bit more interesting if you keep the crypt ghouls as well, or maybe
Hmm.
you add these vampires to the crypt ghouls.
Yes. Yeah.
That could be a way you could buff them out as well.
That
There's
would be
only one
fun.
thing I don't like about these specifically, and it's how they're painted.
Ah.
I do not like the white. I think the brighter skin color makes them look a bit silly.
Maybe too vital. Yeah, they could do with being
Yeah.
pallid. Yeah.
I've painted mine, and the Vargeist looking thing from Cursed City. I've colored them like red and given them like very black fur, and I think that makes them look for me, for my personal taste, a little bit nicer, a little bit more scary than just the white fleshy color. Like I say, to me they look a bit on the not silly side, but there's something not quite right about them. I think
too human, too vital about them. Yeah,
maybe too human actually. I think might be the case. Yeah, give them a less human color scheme, and I think they'll look a lot better.
So if they had like a sort of like grey pallor, like the previous miniatures do, that would work. Or a blue pallor to them.
Something moony, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, my favourite of the lot is actually the most restrained, which is Belladama.
Oh, she's my least favorite. I don't like a big fluffy collar.
I love her. I think she's so ridiculous. She's so over the top. I think she's great. What is with this like Cossack thing that they've got going on with the vampires?
I don't know. Maybe it's because Total War Warhammer 3 is going to be focusing on Kislev, and they want to have something Kislevy. Because I mean, this Russian design is a really interesting, unique look.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to have it in because it does have a good visual stand.
It's so unusual, and of course, it does make sense. They're obviously drawing inspiration from areas of the world where a lot of vampire lore comes from.
Yeah, totally.
Which is Eastern
100%.
Europe, makes a load of sense. But it's a very unique and interesting take for AOS because it actually hasn't been seen before.
No, never. I mean, usually with vampires, it's just your standard aristocratian vampire, and that's about it.
Yeah,
very ornate armor, and that's it. So have it like you say, the more regal look to them, I like. This one just doesn't do it for me. I think they went too heavy on the collar.
She's mad. I mean, the miniature's bonkers. They've gone really like crazy with the ridiculous hat, the shoulder wing things, the big collar. She's like so over the top.
Oh, you know who she is? She's the Russian equivalent of the old lady in Game of Thrones.
Ah, yes, yeah. Sort of
What's
like
her name?
The power behind the throne, like a vizier almost, yeah.
That's her, yeah. I'm sure people who remember Game of Thrones hopefully know who I'm talking
Belladama
about.
Volga, first of the Vrkos.
What a good name, though. The thing I like most about this mini, because like I said, I don't like her herself. I really like the base, and I love the wolves.
Yeah.
The two wolves are really good. They're top tier.
Yeah, the wolves are great. In fact, I like the dire wolves as well. The new dire wolves, I think they're
the dire wolves are amazing. I mean, this was something I predicted that we'd need new dire wolves because the dire wolves we had were crap for the longest time.
They've been using the old metal ones, haven't they? From
well, they'd be resin at this point.
They'd be resin now, but they were originally like the old metal ones from God knows when.
And these are slightly better, shall we say?
Only slightly. Only slightly. I mean, for the first time, they look properly undead, for one thing.
100%. One of them's got a bit of intestine hanging out with a little crow on his back, eating his back, which is very funny.
I mean, surely anyone who looks at these immediately thinks Resident Evil.
But it's even more so than the Resident Evil. Even more so, because I don't usually the ones in Resident Evil just kind of go a bit more furless and skinless. This is more like bits are missing, large chunks, gashes.
Either that or Bloodborne. A little bit of Bloodborne going on here.
I could see, that would work too for Bloodborne.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, these are great. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
I am a little surprised that they said that's it. That we've seen everything now for the Soulblight vampires. I thought that's what they said on stream. I'm not sure if it's true or not because there was slightly below the where you can see all the dire wolves. There is a group shot, and I think there might be one or two things in there that we haven't seen properly.
Right.
You kind of need to zoom into places. If you look where the Lady of Nightmares is, there's a Vargeist in the background, and in front of them there's skeletons. And to me, if you zoomed in on it, it looked like one of them might have a double-handed weapon.
Interesting.
But again, whether my eyes are deceiving me or not, I can't say.
Right. So yeah, I mean it's quite a small miniatures range then.
Yeah, I mean it's big enough. New zombies, new skeletons.
Loads of new characters.
Like returning things. Vargeists are returning.
Yep.
The corpse car seems like it'll probably be the same, unless that's new. I couldn't tell in the image that they put up. That might be a new corpse car, but I doubt it.
No, it's an old. I think that's the old one.
I think it is, yeah. I don't remember people really using corpse carts anyway, but whatever.
Nope.
We're also using the what is it? It's not Vargeist. It's not a zombie dragon. What's the other thing? It's the giant
The
zombie
Terrorgeist. The Terrorgeist,
thank
yeah.
you. The Terrorgeist is the same one, which is fine.
Fine.
That mold's good.
Yeah, it is a
And
good
you can
mini.
still buy it.
It's
so
a good mini.
Yeah. So it looks like they're returning.
Okay.
Which I
cool.
don't mind.
That's fine. I can deal with that.
Yeah, it still feels like because we don't have any Graveguard.
Yeah, that's weird.
Unless they change up how the skeletons work, because they're a lot more armored than they used to be.
Maybe it's an upgrade.
Function more similar to the Graveguard. Like maybe it's in between stage between what the skeletons were and what the Graveguard are, and they fall somewhere in the middle there.
Maybe you just have like your bog standard skeleton unit, and you can upgrade them. Maybe you can give them armor and stuff, and that's how they function. You can upgrade them to Graveguard or something.
I would imagine though that the idea might be to have just these skeletons and then have the zombies as your swarm, because from my eyes, the difference between having a zombie force or a skeleton force is the skeleton force might be a little bit more expensive, but they were more effective.
Yes.
But they filled a similar role of bogging down the enemy. So maybe that's the way you get around it. You go, okay, zombies are for bogging down the enemy, skeletons are your basic units that'll be able to cut down a bit more. But even so, I can't imagine the skeletons they're not going to hammer through Stormcast.
Oh God, no! I mean, no undead infantry is ever going to do that, are they? That's really not what they're designed for. You're going to want the characters to do that.
That's true, yeah.
It looks like it's going to be one of those forces, and this makes total sense. That's heavily reliant on its characters. It's heavily based around them.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Like heavy vampire units, like the Blood Knights. Excuse me, like the Blood Knights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting, because that means as well we don't have any new Black Knights. No new Skeleton Horsemen, which is kind of sad. Because those are old and not very good.
That's odd, given that we've got like the White King, the mounted White King. That's really weird.
Yeah, because that's a very, very fancy kit. Very fancy. And he's going to really outshine the rest of his undead.
Quite significantly.
Significantly. So hopefully maybe they didn't mean that.
Maybe somewhere down the line. Maybe like as a later release, there'll be Black Knights and whatnot.
I hope so. Yeah, it doesn't need to come out straight away, but it'd be nice for some, I don't know, a few extra bits here and there. And we'll see. We don't even know what this is. Are the Soulblight vampires... Here's a question, George. Are the Soulblight vampires a 2.0 army or a 3.0 army?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, the fact that we know 3.0 is coming, that it's imminent.
Yeah.
Maybe they are going to be the poster children for 3.0.
Maybe. Because it was announced now, 3.0 was announced very recently, and we've had the word on the Soulblight for a little bit now. Maybe the idea that this is the last army before 3.0, so hopefully rules won't matter too much between the two of them.
Right,
hopefully.
Maybe it's the bridge, yeah?
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Because it would be a shame, like, for the Soulblight vampires to come out and then 3.0 to come out and they'd just
nerf
better
them
rules
or
for
something.
everything else.
Yeah.
So as soon as this new game comes out, Soulblight vampires were really good for like a month, and then 3.0 comes out and they're like, oh well, they don't have this now. They don't have this.
That
now.
would be annoying. I can't imagine that would be the case. Normally, if there's a codex or a battle tome that comes out towards the end of an edition, they kind of tailor it so that it functions in the new edition. So.
That's right.
All being well, maybe that will be it. Maybe the Soulblight, if they come out at the end of 2.0, they will be like an indicator of how the battle tomes are going to be in 3.0.
Totally. Yeah, but this is all on the basis that we don't know when Soulblight are coming out, and we don't know when 3.0 is coming out. No idea.
We just know it's imminent. It's imminent. I mean,
what does imminent mean in a COVID world?
Right, that it could be. It could be like nearer Christmas for all we know,
I wouldn't be shocked if 3.0 was a Christmas thing.
Yeah. That would
just before Christmas.
That would kind of make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
that would kind of make sense logically. The thing I'm very excited about that really shocked me to my core was just after the day after we did the last recording, the day after we got the Slanesh children.
That's right, yeah. Oh, you were super happy about them for obvious reasons.
Completely blown away. Completely
Good
blown
luck
away.
painting them, as well as the heavy metals team, because
Right.
they've painted those wings
They
magnificently.
are
They are
superb.
so elegant.
I mean, what a shock! First of all,
Yeah.
shocked that the miniatures are basically there. They exist already. I mean, I was expecting the Slanesh child to be this ongoing thing in the background, for a long time before it emerged in miniature form. But also the big shock: it's not a child; it's children.
Yeah.
It's twins. That's a big shock. And this is the first. I mean, Chaos has always had slightly bigger miniatures because they've always had the greater demons. But this is the first time, apart from like the Slaves to Darkness with Archaon, where one of the god-specific forces has got their big god tier characters.
Yeah, I suppose like the only thing like close might have been Marathi, who
Yeah.
had big demon Marathi and
Hmm.
small Marathi.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess the idea was like Gorka Morka do something like
Yep.
this.
Yep. These
Gorka Morka,
guys
sorry.
are something else.
Yeah.
These guys are like these are the very epitome of what Slaanesh should be in miniatures forms. They're beautiful. They're absolutely stunning.
What do you think it will be for both of them, George? Probably have to spend about 200,
It will probably
probably.
be about that, yeah. It wouldn't
Yeah.
surprise me, but I want them both because they're
Oh yeah,
both
you gotta have
beautiful.
both.
They're both
But it's not
stunning.
just that, narrative as well.
Narrative-wise, yeah. I mean, did you notice the little thing with their names?
Yeah.
So one's called Sinessa, one's called Dexessa, so the left and right hand of Slaanesh,
It's such a good
essentially.
idea.
Clever
Very
idea.
nice.
But
Yeah.
like metaphysically, what do they represent? I mean, essentially, these guys are like the apotheosis of all of Slaanesh's elements, right?
Yeah.
Split between two bodies. So it's like having an avatar of one of the Chaos gods on the battlefield, yeah?
Yeah.
These guys are going to be god tier. They're going to be at least the equivalent of Nagash or Morathai or Teclis. Um, so
Are they meant to be
these,
on at the same time, or are you able to have one or the other?
I think, given the wording when the miniatures came out, you can have one or the other, or you can have them
Okay.
both.
Right. I
One
wondered
of
if it was one
them,
of those things where they had to be together at all
no,
times
they
or
don't have
not.
to be. No, they don't have to be together.
Okay.
So Dexessa is the one with the elaborate crown of horns and the hair
Hmm.
that's going up, and that one is the close combat expert essentially. It's the
Okay.
part of Slaanesh that represents just rampant appetite, just acting on impulse. There's no restraint or anything whatsoever. The other one, Sinessa, is the more cultivated pleasures. So that represents the psychological aspect of Slaanesh. So obviously it's a very powerful sorcerer.
Hmm.
Very cool. I don't know which one I like better. They're both stunning. They're both absolutely beautiful.
I was going to ask which one would you build first?
I'd probably first it would almost certainly be the wizard one, so it'd probably be Sinessa first.
Okay.
It'd probably be Sinessa first, simply
But
because
not
that,
but not on a looks wise, but just on an army how it would work wise
yeah,
for you
yeah,
think. Okay, that's
because
interesting.
I like magic. I just
Oh,
I've always liked
that's good.
sorcerers and magic
Yeah.
and whatnot, and that way of playing, so that obviously appeals to me. But in
Mm.
terms of the miniature design, I mean, these guys represent a quantum leap forward for Slaanesh forces. They put a lot of even what exists in the Hedonites of Slaanesh range into the shade.
Mm.
For my money, they almost need to redo the Demonettes, for example, now.
Oh well, I mean the Demonettes are again we've said it
Pretty
many
old.
times before, but pretty old.
They're pretty
Yeah.
old now, so yeah, they need to do them. They're just beautiful, and what they represent as well. So these guys are going to be very significant in the mortal realms. Obviously, they're going to
Mm.
upset the pantheon of chaos, the balance of chaos in the realms. Like Khorne is going to be apoplectic about this.
He's going to be a little bit miffed, I would imagine, right?
Just a little bit, because it looks like one of the narrative threads carrying forward is that Slaanesh is going to be predominant again amongst the Chaos
Wow.
powers.
Mm.
Certainly one of the more active of the Chaos gods. And, like, the other Chaos god-specific powers don't have their god tier miniatures yet.
No, I was thinking that as well. Yeah.
So, did these guys suggest that sometime in 3.0 that the other Chaos gods will have their representatives as well?
again, from a business side point, of course they
It
will.
would make a lot of
Of course.
sense, wouldn't it?
How will they do it narratively? That's the
That's the
interesting way.
interesting thing. I mean,
And how
these.
long will it take for them to come out? Will they
Yes.
leave it for a big push each like 2 or 3 years, and then we'll do
Yeah.
another. We'll do Nurgle's one, then we'll do Korn's one, and so,
I think
etc.
I think that's likely.
Yeah.
They can't do it all at once because it would
Yeah.
unbalance the significance of these guys, wouldn't it?
And you couldn't do it again from a business standpoint because people couldn't afford it.
Exactly. Yeah, people just
Clearly.
couldn't afford it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, Slanesh has just got more going on than the other Chaos powers. Just more
Way
going
more.
on.
It's got a full proper army. The only
Yep.
one close to that is like the Blades of Corn,
Yep.
right?
Yep, absolutely. And even they don't have the equivalent of these guys.
No,
So,
no.
yeah, there needs to be some equivalence going on there at some point. At some point. But for now, I mean, the fact they've done my favorite Chaos God first makes me very happy.
I guess because they're focusing so much on Slanesh here is maybe why you don't have the Slanesh stuff in 40k, right? Because they don't want to
Maybe.
split the attention
Maybe
over.
so, yeah, maybe that's it. I mean, these guys, because they're demons, they will eventually make the transition to 40k.
Yeah, 100%.
They'll be
100%.
there in the same way that Baylacor did,
Yeah.
But what I don't want them to do is do what they did with Baylacor. With Baylacor, they just dropped him in. It was just, oh, he's always been there. He's always been there.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's the shit.
there was no pomp and circumstance. There was no like grand campaign or anything. He was just, oh yeah, he's always been there.
Damn, there should have been. Because again, there was the big Broken Realms, big thing with Baylacor. Should be a big thing with Baylacor in 40k, you'd say. Or think of, anyway.
Yep, there really should. I hope with these guys that they herald something really special. I mean, if they really wanted to make a splash, they could save these guys up for 40k until the Emperor's Children are done.
I think that would be the smart idea.
Wouldn't that be great? So then you'd get these guys and Fulgrim and the Emperor's Children all coming at once,
I have a feeling they wouldn't do anything desperately special with their inclusion in the lore in 40k because they'd be focusing on like Fulgrim and stuff. But you could have them definitely in the background as a big push as well.
I mean, maybe they could have them being born during the fall or something like that.
Fun.
That would make sense or something like that. But yeah, for my money, they're some of the best miniatures that Games Workshop have ever done.
Yeah, it's hard because it seems like I mean they say it a lot on stream, but it's one of those things where you kind of feel that they have to because it's their show.
You say that, don't you?
Yeah, but it's like these are very, very impressive.
Yeah, they're something else. They are really something else. They kind of encapsulate everything I love about Slanesh,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So what more could you ask for, really, in that regard?
I guess the only thing, if you wanted to go a bit crazier, is put like worshippers on the base.
Yes, yeah, put some like hedonites like crawling around the base. Yeah, you could do that.
Fornicating as you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I think that's maybe the only thing it's not really a downside, but the only thing that's worth mentioning is like you look how elaborate the mini is, and then the base is very basic.
Yes,
it's just the base. And it's so weird because you look at Sleepy Frog. His base is not like the most
Sleepy
elaborate.
Frog, yeah.
Sleepy Frog. That's how I'll always remember him.
Sleepy Frog.
His base has a bit more to it. He's got like the broken rocks everywhere and whatnot. And Baylacor has an amazing base.
Baylor's got a great base.
Like I say, it's not a detraction from the model itself. It's just surprising. I'm guessing the budget for the figure went all into the figure and nothing into the base, which is fair enough.
Which is fine,
Yeah, it's up to you now to make the base good.
I mean, day 2 we got more 40k. We got the Battle Sisters, of course.
Yeah.
The one that really surprised me was Morven Val. And not really because of the miniature. It's because of what she is.
Oh, Lords of Terror, right?
Yeah, she's one of the Lords of Terror.
That's right. Yeah, I remember you mentioning this to me, and I looked at her and went, that's not one of the old smelly men I know from Emperor Communication.
It is not. She is apparently one of the Lords of Terror. She is essentially, she's the Pope. She is the leader of the ecclesiarchy,
I thought the leader of the ecclesiarchy was always a dude.
Well, apparently not.
Okay. I guess they changed that.
I suppose it doesn't matter though, does it? I mean, one of the things you can say for the Imperium is that, like, gender roles mean nothing.
No, but
But
in my mind, like when I always remember the Pope characters, it was always a dude, like a really old wizened dude, and
yeah,
then they always had the powerful female warriors pushing forward,
that's right.
pushing, spreading the word, as it were, like an actual church back in the day we used to
I
do.
mean, maybe
With the
this
people leading
one,
and then
because we
the
know that this one, she has, bizarrely, she must be good at what she does because she's got the favor of Gilliman.
yeah.
And he
Yeah,
doesn't.
maybe that's the thing. Maybe he got rid of the crappy
Yeah.
old dude who did nothing and put her in charge instead. Maybe that's the idea.
Maybe there's
Yeah,
some politics going on here because we know
that
he
could be the
doesn't
thing.
like the ecclesiarchy.
No.
So maybe this is his way of reining it in, of controlling it a little bit more.
Yeah, or maybe not even reining it in, but having more logic behind it and less corruption
A little bit more
potentially, I guess.
influence over it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
maybe
could see
so.
that. That makes sense.
I like the way, I mean, she's obviously going to be like your big miniature in that range. She's going to be the equivalent of Abaddon and Thraka and whatnot. And the way they've gotten around that is by giving her just this big fuck off mech thing.
Yes, we'd seen these mechs things a couple of releases back, hadn't we? Yeah, she's just got a fancier version of
A
that, and it's
much
got a
fancier
lot of
version.
It's way fancy. Yeah, it's got way more ornate detail all over the shop. I still don't like it visually, for how the suit works, but I do like how they've spiced it up with all. It's very reminiscent of the Custodes armor in a lot of ways, like the leg especially.
Yeah, there's like a crossover there, which kind of makes sense, I suppose, because according to the Sisters of Battle, the Custodes are like true children of the Emperor. They're the
Yeah, that's
Emperor's
right, yeah.
angels, they're basically supernatural insofar as the Sisters of Battle are concerned.
I mean, they're kind of not wrong. They're super
They're
duper space marines.
kind of not wrong. No, you're absolutely
No.
right. Like super duper psychic space marines, yeah.
Yeah.
What I really like with these new miniatures is they've clearly looked into historical sources and historical artwork for them. So you've got characters like Astrid Thurga, the banner bearer from a bit further down.
Oh,
And
with the Friar Tuck hairstyle.
yeah, she looks for all the world like she could belong in an historical miniatures range.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah?
But get rid of the backpack and the bit of the techie detail. Yeah.
Yeah. They've gone a little bit darker with these guys, a little bit more medieval,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which makes a lot of sense because that's what they are.
Yes.
That may, the only one I'm not that fond of is Dogmata.
Which one's that one?
Dogmata's the one who's standing in the very static
Oh.
pose and looks like a second ed miniature.
She looks like a witch.
Yeah, yeah.
She's got a witch look to her, like incredible furrowed brow. She has like a caveman forehead going on.
The way
Bless her.
she's standing and everything, she looks like a metal miniature, doesn't she?
Oh God, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I could see that being like 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces of metal. Like the arms are separate, the body and everything else is intact, and maybe the backpack was separate. Yeah, I never even thought about it like that. You're so right.
Doesn't it look second ed?
It is very static compared to everything else. Like the banner bearer, she's clutching the
Yes.
flag while pointing the sword and walking forward. So there's a lot of the old dude is like leaning on a stick and lunging forward a little bit.
There's a lot of motion, isn't there? Whereas that is just a miniature on a base.
Yes, it's static. There's nothing to it. So strange.
Very odd choice. I mean, maybe that's why. Maybe they're going because she, if you look at her character, she is like this. She is statuesque. She's unflinching, doesn't move, doesn't give any ground to the enemy. So maybe that's what they're trying to represent with that. But it's
boring in the end, unfortunately.
Right. It's not for me. I've got to say, even the robes look like old second ed robes, like big one-piece sculpts.
Yeah, not much in the way of like folding to them. There's bits, and clearly it's been painted on as well. But again, it's not like blowing in the wind or anything like that. The wind isn't catching it at all. It's everything's static. A hair static,
isn't it? It's a strange piece of work.
Face almost. They're going ooh.
Yeah, it's an odd piece of work, like really retro, really retro.
I didn't notice it until you pointed it out either. So,
but maybe that's the point. I don't know. Maybe that's what they're going for with it. Maybe it's like a deliberate homage to.
It can't be because everything else is so.
Yeah, that's true.
So different.
It's true. Everything else, like the one below, Palatine, she is running forward. She's got that rosary thing in her hand.
Yeah.
It's much more dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, compared to like the Celestian Sacrosancts down below, which are gorgeous.
They look great
Yeah,
with them
brilliant.
bases.
Proper Templars. They look like proper, almost historical Templars.
Cities to Sigmar conversions if you
Yeah,
wanted, lads.
yeah. There's not much to them.
No.
If you really wanted to convert them, it would be very easy.
Pretty much.
And they're good. They're really cool miniatures. Sisters of Battle, again, not my thing. But I do like that sort of medieval Spanish Inquisition thing that they have going on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they've all come across well. I think they showed off the war suits again. I don't think the war suits are any different from last time we saw them, are
Are
they?
they the same? I think they're the
I think
same. The
so.
Paragons,
Yeah.
not my thing.
Nah.
They're a little odd for me. They're fine. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with them. I can see a lot of conversions happening here.
Oh yeah, 100%.
With Chaos players are going to want to make demon engines out of them out of sheer perversity.
Just leave the sisters in and
Yep.
do horrible things to
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Mhm.
like Slanesh demon engines. These guys, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I could see that.
I could see these making brilliant Slanesh demon engines.
Mm.
I mean, if they're big enough, even like little Slanesh knights, maybe.
That could be cute. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like the idea of that.
But everything else is what we've seen before, really.
I think so, yeah.
It's just we're just waiting for the codex to drop now. I mean, it's
They
clear
did show the codex as well, so it
they
can't be
did.
that far
It's
off.
got to be soon, and I imagine they're going to be a big one, aren't they?
Do you think they're waiting for the Warzone Caradron Book 2 to come out and
I
then
think
put them
that's
out
it.
then?
I think that's it. Yeah, because they feature quite heavily in that, don't they? So,
Oh, do they? Okay.
yeah, by all accounts. So
Hmm.
I'd imagine that's the case. Well, they're fighting against Baylacor apparently, so
Who's just turned up.
who's just turned
like you
up.
said.
Yeah, just turned up. Is without much pomp or ceremony. He's just there.
Hi, guys.
Which is, I mean, it's weird. I mean, one of the, we were talking earlier about some of the complaints people have had. One of the big complaints was that apparently Baylacor has this weird army list in the book, which combines demons and Chaos Space Marines.
Oh,
But
really?
we don't have the demon or Chaos Space Marine codices for Ninth Ed.
Oh, that is strange.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Isn't that odd? So, is this Warzone Caradron 2 going to be like a teaser for what those books will contain?
Or at least like to run some ideas through, maybe.
Yes, like an indicator.
See how people play them and
Maybe.
whatnot, and see what people do and what work and what don't. Maybe that's the idea.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's it. Maybe that's the idea. It's weird. It's really strange. I don't quite know what. I mean, does that mean that those books are imminent?
They can't be, right?
I can't imagine. I mean, there's so much being teased now. They
definitely.
can't. Where can they fit it all in?
Yeah, it's hard to try and like watching, especially over this week. It's quite difficult to try and figure out where they'll put things, just because there is so much they've shown.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you spread that over this time period of this year now? I don't know.
It's really difficult. It's all very, very tricky. I'm not sure. That's the answer. I just do not know how all of this is going to occur, to be honest.
It's going to happen after Broken Realms, obviously, because Broken Realms is going to wrap up within the next month, at least. Probably sooner than that, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's soon, isn't it? I mean, Kragnos is the last one, isn't it?
I think so.
It feels like it's the capstone.
So then, logically, for AOS, after that, well, no, after Broken Realms is done, they probably want to do something 40k related.
And
do either the Soulblight Gravelords or AOS 3.
Yep.
And then go back to doing another 40k thing, what I would guess.
The funny thing about AOS 3, did you notice that all the preview we've got was totally lore-based?
Yeah, I was a little bit annoyed that the only things they showed was Stormcast, and I know Adam was
rules.
as well.
No rules.
Oh, that's a good point. They did kind of mention the rules a little bit here and there, but nothing hammered down
like
yet.
Concrete. Nothing about what's going to change or what's going to be like what's going to be consistent from one to the other. It was almost entirely lore-based, which is interesting.
Yeah, I wonder how much that indicates. How much in the process there, or how far they've got through with doing the rules.
Mm-hmm.
and how much is just still being tested at the moment and tweaked and whatnot. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
hard to say.
yeah, hard
Shall
to
we talk
say.
about 3.0?
Yeah, why not? Let's go. I mean, obviously the
Yeah.
Stormcast are getting, and they do need it now actually, because the Stormcast, like the Nighthaunt, have been kind of put into the background a little bit recently.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess what was the last thing that they what was the last thing they got? It has been a
pass.
long time.
Can't remember. Pass.
No.
Can't remember. Little bits and pieces. Maybe a Diachasm warband, I think, may have been the
Oh,
last
they
thing.
have that dude doing the Iron Man pose, don't
Oh,
they?
Gardas. Yeah, Gardas from
Yeah.
Baylor. There was him. Yeah, there was definitely him. But in terms of like significant releases, not much.
No, I think they're very much like the Night Haunt, and it's
Mm,
been probably since second edition
yep.
came out.
It's been a long time. But clearly
Yeah.
they really want to do something with not just the nature of the Stormcast, but the aesthetics as well.
Yes.
These new miniatures are far removed from what they used to be.
Yeah, they are not squat hunched boys.
No.
They've almost kind of given them a Primaris kind of
Yes.
overhaul.
Yeah. They're more knightly looking, aren't they?
I like the look of them a lot more now.
Yeah.
A lot more.
They're much more distinct. They're much
Yeah.
more distinct than they used to be. They don't just look like Space Marines in AOS.
Yeah.
They've been Primaris. Yeah, that's essentially it. They look taller. They look much more upright.
Yeah, they're not hunched. They're not hunched and squat. Their
Yeah,
shoulders aren't by their ears anymore.
yeah. And I like all these new miniatures. They look really good.
Definitely. Yeah.
Really dynamic. I love the fact you've got lots of different heads and sculpts to mess about with. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And the new character, she's a beaut, isn't she?
She ain't bad. She ain't bad.
Indrasta. Yeah, she's lovely.
I'm not a big fan of the way the armor's painted. I think that
That,
it would be nice to have a bit more of a contrast with the wings. Maybe the
mhm.
wings be brown or something
Yeah,
like that. But I get the vibe that they're going for.
I like the
She's meant to be an
fact.
angel, clearly.
Yes, I mean, and I like that. I like the fact they've gone for the more angelic vibe. It really works for the Stormcast.
Oh yeah.
I can see someone converting that to be sanguineous.
Maybe an issue is she has the generic Stormcast girl hair.
Mm-hmm.
Shaved on the side and flipped over to the right hand
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
Which I think that was the. She actually looks nearly identical to the lady Stormcast on the front cover of the 2.0 Codex
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Rulebook. Almost exactly the same, but with new armor and wings and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe some different hairstyle would have been nice, but it's not really a complaint. It's just like a minor.
It's
A
just
little
like,
bit of variety would have been nice.
yeah, I know what you mean.
You know,
But no, she's impressive. It looks like she's going to
definitely.
be one like the big character model this time round.
Yeah, she's gonna be. What was the equivalent before? It was like the Lord Militant on the Star Drake or whatever it was called.
Something like that. Yeah, I can't remember
Yeah.
what his name was.
No, it was something akin to that though. Yeah, she'll be the. She looks a lot better than that as well because it's
Yeah.
an individual character. I guess this is their god tier character.
Hmm. I
Right?
mean, you've also got like these new like basically Terminators. They're essentially
Oh,
Stormcast Terminators. These big guys down the bottom, Paladins.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're gonna be. I'm guessing they're gonna be on bases like Crypt Horrors and
Yeah,
stuff like that. They're
they're
your
gonna be
middle-sized unit.
massive.
Yeah,
They're
they
gonna
said they
be
hit like a
huge.
truck as
Yeah,
well
two
and
plus
steady.
save.
Yeah, I was like, Jesus,
There isn't much in AOS that has a 2+ save.
no.
There's not much at all. It's not like 40k, where 2+ saves are 10 a penny.
Hmm.
And also they've got the equivalents of Galmaraz. Have you seen the hammer
Yeah, yeah.
with the lightning on it?
Yeah, it's very good. It's
That's
very interesting.
yeah.
I wonder how many's in a unit. Is it a 3 unit thing or is it a 1 unit thing?
I'm imagining it's going to be one of those things where you get 1 or 3, 1 to 3 in a unit. That would
That's
be
what
my
I'm thinking
guess.
as well. Yeah.
I
I wouldn't
mean,
be shocked either if it was just one because with a 2+ save,
yeah,
you can't have
that's
too many. That's crazy.
no, and especially if they're multi-wound as well, which obviously they
Ooh.
are going to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they're going to be tough, aren't they? Really,
You'd
really
imagine so.
tough.
I love how big his shield is though.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? It's
You know
huge.
what this reminds me of? I don't like to think of this, but it reminds me of the giant stone guardians from Dark Souls 2.
Ah, yeah. Yes.
Reminds me a bit of them, but in better condition because those guys were rock and falling apart. These guys they have big shields, big hammers. I wonder if they're just all with hammers or if there'll be some
Like
some with swords and
variety
whatnot.
in weapons and whatnot. I would think so. usually the Stormcast are quite adaptable. You know, they've got lots of weapon options. So
That's true. They're not exactly the same as Space Marines where they have everything. I said this to
no,
Mr. Gruff though. I was like, I don't want the Stormcast to be Space Marines,
no,
as in they have everything. I
no.
want them to have obvious weaknesses that they can't deal with in
Yeah,
some ways.
small elite armies. That's what works for the Stormcast. You know,
Stormcast, yeah,
small
yeah.
and
That's
elite.
narratively as well. It makes sense for them to kind of function that way.
Yeah, because that's how they do function, isn't it? You know, there aren't
Yeah,
many
pretty
of them.
much.
They move in
Mm,
their chambers, which are actually quite small.
yeah,
And they tend, in the fiction, they tend to turn up when like the forces of humanity are beleaguered in some way.
that's right. Yeah.
So that
Oh,
makes
and
a lot of
you did
sense.
mention about Be'lakor's Cloud and why these Stormcasts exist now, right?
Yeah, so basically they can't go back to Azir anymore. Basically, Bael'Akor has made it so that the realm gates through which their souls would transport themselves back to Azir don't exist anymore. They've been corrupted by chaos and they don't work anymore. So if a Stormcast dies within the realms now, they stay there and they can get sifted away by other forces, so by like the forces of chaos, by the Nighthaunt, by Nagash or whatever, which is a bad thing. Clearly, I mean that's a bad thing, certainly for the Stormcast anyway. So it looks like these guys they've been redesigned so that their armor somehow spirits them back to Azir, which is a kind of nice mechanistic way of getting around it.
Yeah, they said sometimes though. They
Not
said
all,
sometimes it
yeah.
won't work.
Right, it's not as guaranteed as it used to be. So now
Yeah.
the Stormcast are going to be, so I mean, not in game terms, but in lore terms, going to be much more fragile.
Yeah, I guess the suggestion is that it takes away the invincible nature of the
Yeah,
Stormcast because they'll never die. They'll just their armies are just forever.
yeah.
But now it's like they can actually start losing things, which
Mm,
I guess puts them in a bit more of a stressful situation, which is a good idea.
yeah, that's a good idea. Put them on the hot foot. Yeah, that
Yeah.
does work. That does work, and it gives the army a little bit more like desperation in their narrative.
Yeah.
Because now, of course, there's loads of things they can do. You can actually set up narratives where the Stormcast like voyage across the realms trying to set free their trapped brothers and that kind of thing.
Yeah, you can do good RPGs as well, where as you're going along, you slowly lose more and more people. And like
Hmm.
you say, you have to either free them or they're gone forever,
Yeah,
or they get corrupted and turned against you for
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
reason.
Brilliant idea. I mean, I like
Yeah.
this. I like this idea a lot.
Narratively, there's a lot more you can do, I guess, now, which is great.
They were also talking about how they're going to have much more of like a questing knight quality about them now,
Yeah, I
which
like
is
the idea of
interesting.
that.
So I wonder what that implies for the wider mythology of the Stormcast. I mean, what are they questing for? What are they
Hmm.
after?
I
You
guess
know?
it depends on where they are, what group they're with at the
Hmm.
time. Maybe it's an individual thing. Maybe
Yeah.
there are some out there to prove themselves for whatever reason.
Or maybe some of them are separated because of what's happened.
Hmm.
Maybe some of them are actually separated from Azir and are trying to get back. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah,
That'd
like
be a nice
all the
idea.
storm hosts has been destroyed, and they were the only ones that made it out for
Yeah.
whatever reason, and they got to get home.
Yeah.
There's a novel there for something. There's a book
Right.
series.
And a great narrative dynamic for 3.0, you know?
Definitely, yeah.
But let's see. I mean, again, I mean, I'm not that interested in collecting them, but I want the book. I definitely want the new battle tome for them.
I think I would be happier to get these ones with the spears, the Thunderstrike host as a free paint mini than I
Yeah.
would be for a standard Stormcast.
Yeah, definitely.
I think they look a lot nicer to paint as well.
Also, I mean, these guys would be very easy to convert into something else. Like you could convert them into Chaos Warriors, into
Yes, yeah.
the guys from the Hedonites of Slaanesh. They would
Mhm.
make very good bases for them.
You could easily use them for a white king. All you need to
Yeah.
do is swap around some heads and add
Yep.
some fancier pieces on here and there for a bit of regalness.
Easy peasy. Easy
Yep.
peasy. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. You could even go like, I mean, they're big enough whereby you could put orc heads on them and make them like mega armored orcs that have nicked like Stormcast armor or something.
I like the idea instead of going with that idea to chop up the figure completely and then stick the parts on top of an orc.
That'd be great, yeah.
And then like use the head for like a pretend helmet, so you stick it to the side of an
Yeah.
orc head so that they think they're wearing it.
Yeah, that'd be great fun.
Like, isn't there a 40k orc faction that thinks they're part of the Imperial Guard or something? Isn't
Yeah,
that a law thing?
there is a yeah. It was what we were talking about earlier. You know, the Storm Boys.
Oh, yeah.
They emulate the Imperial Guard.
Right.
They're very un-orky. The other orcs don't like them because they emulate human beings. They wear uniforms and stuff like that. They actually
Okay.
try to form into regiments and to
Hmm.
have like discipline and that kind of thing. The other orcs hate them
I'm not surprised.
because they're not orky.
Well, speaking of orcs, what do you think about the teas? Because we know what one half of this 3.0 box set is, but unfortunately they didn't tell us what the other half is,
Well,
which is the thing that miffed me off because that was the thing I was most interested
the
in.
scuttlebutt is that it's going to be destruction, isn't it? That's
I
what
think that's the most obvious thing,
Yeah.
from what they showed. Yeah.
That
Because they
seems
showed
to
us a
be
map of what's it called? What's the realm of beasts?
the
Is
realm
it just
of
the realm of beasts?
beasts. Off the top of my head, can't remember.
Gur. It's Gur.
Gur, that's it. Gur,
Yeah.
yeah. It
Yeah,
would
they
make
showed us that.
sense. It would make sense for it to be some form of destruction army.
Hmm.
So my guess is the Aurochs, maybe given Kragnos kind of unites the forces of destruction behind him. Maybe it's a united force of destruction. Maybe it's Aurochs and Sons of Behemat and whatnot all together.
From the trailer, it's 100% not orcs from the trailer.
Is it right? Okay,
Yeah, I mean, did you watch the trailer with the
I
whole...
didn't. I didn't really know.
Okay, the trailer like shows these guys. There's a little poem going on about this.
Oh,
there were 3 warriors.
yes.
That one.
No,
That's the
I
one
did
mean.
see that. I did
Yeah.
see that. No, that is really interesting because it seems the way it's worded, that seems like it's going to be something new.
Yes, or something old, as
As
our friend
Adam,
Mr. Griff
well,
is hoping.
there is hope for that. I mean, the way it's worded and the way it's set, it looks like it's either going to be the Famir or
Yep,
like some AOS descendant of what the Famir are. I mean, we already know they exist. We've got the Fomoroid destroyers
that's right. Yeah.
in the Chaos Forces, and they are kind of descendants of the Famir. They're kind of like the postmodern incarnations of the Famir. So there's no reason why there shouldn't be like a new race based on them.
Or it's something just completely new that we have no
Yeah,
idea about.
maybe
But
so.
yeah, you can tell from the trailer. You watch that trailer, it's not orcs
No,
because there's sneakiness,
there's
and
sneakiness.
orcs are not sneaky.
And there's a horror
only
element to it as well, isn't there?
Yeah, it can't be the giants again.
No.
They're too big to be sneaky.
Right.
Ogres again, not going to be sneaky. Goblins, I don't think they
No.
would do a
Could
Stormcast versus goblins.
no, it's not epic enough, is it? It's not like
No.
no. Could it be like? I mean, there seems to have been some implication recently that there are going to be like insect men.
I mean, that would be interesting as well, but I don't think they do them around bogs. But like Mr. Gruff said, for me seem more boggy than like insects.
Oh yeah.
But again, it's Gur, so it could be an insect theme.
Who knows? Who knows?
Or maybe the Famir will use insects.
Yeah, who knows? At this point, because we don't really know like what the AOS version of them is going to be, if they're going to be at all, it's all up in the air. But it looks like it's going to be a new race, doesn't it?
It'd be interesting if they decided to go with Skaven and do like a destruction side of Skaven, because they're more destruction than they are chaos.
Given like what's happening with chaos recently, the Skaven really have been like shoved into the background a little bit.
Yeah.
So
and they're about destroying stuff anyway. So
well, yeah. I mean, they're elemental entropy, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
that's what they are. They are kind of destruction, So who knows? Maybe the Horned Rat is going to move over to the destruction side of things.
That'd be okay. I'd be all right with that.
Rather than chaos. Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me. I mean, there's also like conflict in that regard between the Skaven and the Beasts of Chaos because they kind of represent dynamically the same thing.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
them and Beastmen. Beastmen are all about running around blowing up stuff as well. So yeah.
So
Skaven are just better.
They're just better at it, yeah. So I don't know. It's all up in the air, but it's kind of exciting, isn't it? It's always exciting when you get the emergence of something new.
I was going to say, do you think the idea that Age of Sigmar are going to do in the future, each time we only have 2.0 and maybe this to go off, but each time they do a new edition of Age of Sigmar, it's going to be an established force and then something completely new along with them, because that might not be a terrible way to introduce new factions.
No, I think that's a good idea. I mean, maybe that's like the design imperative, you know?
Yeah.
It's a really lovely way of keeping it all ticking over, isn't it?
Yeah, and it means that, people can be happy when a new faction, not a new faction comes out, but when you get an update or new models come out for a range that you already know, and then like, oh, something completely different you've never seen before,
Mm-hmm.
that's its own thing,
Yep.
boom, big box set for it, big
Yeah.
push.
No, it's
That'd be
cool.
great.
It's very cool. I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued to see what they do with 3.0. I mean,
Same.
I like the game very much at the moment, and I like the universe very much.
Mm.
So let's see. Let's see where they go, eh?
And hopefully soon, Age of Sigma will have its very first standalone video game coming this
Right.
month as well.
Oh, really? What's coming up?
It's called Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormgrounds.
Okay.
It's a turn-based thing.
Right.
I'm a little worried about it. It's developed by Gasket Games, publishers Focus.
Right.
So it's not like a big studio or anything
No,
like
it's not going to
that.
be huge, is it?
No, it's starting off with three factions, so Stormcast, Nighthaunt, and Nurgle.
Okay.
There is going to be three different single-player campaigns for each of the forces.
Mm-hmm.
Your units are going to level up. It's it's a fairly small map, turn-based
Yeah.
hexagon kind of
So
style. It
it
looks like it
sounds pretty
might be okay.
standard, you know, for
Yeah, it
pretty
doesn't look
standard.
like it's not going to blow your socks off, but I'm going to get it first day, and
Yeah.
hopefully it won't be poop.
Right, yeah. I mean, the big
But
video game pushes for that Necromunda first person sort of.
no, that's not what the big push is. That's small. Like the big push is Total War Warhammer 3.
That too, yeah.
And the new trailer for that, there's a gameplay thing that's going to be happening this Tuesday. So
Right.
whenever you're listening to this, it'll be on maybe it's the 13th. I can't remember. It's either the 11th or the 13th of this month.
Right. So reasonably soon.
Yeah. So I think Twitch and stuff will have stuff, so you'll be able to see how Kislev plays and how the demons play, or at least Khorne's side of demons play. So that's the big game stuff that will be happening soon.
Interesting.
But yeah, I know the Necromunda stuff. That
Looks good.
It looks okay. Yeah,
Looks good.
The problem was the last Necromunda thing that they did was not very good. It wasn't well received.
Don't know why they
so
can't get
hopefully
it
this stuff will
right.
fix it.
Yeah, let's hope so, eh?
Yeah.
Let's hope so. I mean, they really do. There's no reason why there shouldn't be a very good Warhammer or 40k based video game, you know?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much it, isn't it, Andy?
We've covered a lot of stuff.
Pretty much covered a lot there. I'm not sure, my loves, when we'll be back. It's kind of when we can reconnoiter at the moment. Adam will be back reasonably soon.
Hopefully.
Until then, my dears, Andy, what is there anything you want to pimp out?
You can find me if you want to hear me talk about Transformers on the Moonbase 2 podcast, where me and Mikey talk about them each and every week, even when there's no news to talk about. You can find me on Twitch as CCTFW, where I play games from 11 o'clock in the evening UK time to about 1 in the morning, give or take, every day bar Monday. And you can also find my work on ccbunker.weebly.com. What about yourself, George?
Superb. You can find links to all of my published work at strangeplaygrounds.com. New short story coming out soon. A new short story collection coming out reasonably soon in the summer.
How
That's
soon?
Born in Blood Volume 2.
You got a date?
Not at the moment. No, we just know it's the summer. We just know it's the summer. There's also one of my short stories in an anthology called Unburied, which you'll be able to find on Amazon and other outlets. And if you fancy coming and watching me play video games or chat about every subject under the sun, you can find me at Exaggerated Elegy on YouTube.
Yes, you're getting through Bloodborne. Are you nearly finished Bloodborne?
I'm getting
again?
there. Yeah,
I'm
nearly there.
Yeah.
I've hit a roadblock. I'm struggling with Ludwig. But then who doesn't? You know, Ludwig is you know,
he is the roadblock.
He is the roadblock, isn't he? You know.
Yeah.
If you basically, this is New Game Plus as well, so he's like, he's a pain.
Harder. Yeah.
He's a pain. But if you can do Ludwig, there's nothing in the game that'll phase you, basically.
No, I would agree with that.
He is pretty much the hardest boss in the game, you know, barring one or two of the Chalice Dungeon characters. He's an evil SOB. But I'm getting there. I'm sort of working my way through him, Um, but I will do him. I will do him. And I'll be very proud when I'm done. But yes, until next time, my loves. Bye bye.
Bye.